but there ain't nothing to it. Go ahead and bring Goliath on. Ain't no giant, I ain't gon' fire on. Catch a fade, you, I'm wrong, I'm gone. Y'all can catch the wave that I am on. I am icon, y'all are wide wrong. Think that I'm a reconcile bond, so ain't nothing to it though. This is on me, ain't got much to do with who you know. Keeping it true to form 10 L's into a milli though. But they already knew that those farewell to your opinions. Know that he is something. This is all me, ain't got much to do with who you know. Yeah, keeping it true to form, but they already knew that though. Here we go. I'ma show you who I am. Unbreakable. I'm a big gun, but still watch me escape.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to League Night. Thank you all for watching. Thank you for our viewers, for Dip Chat, for our players. We know you're watching. And I'd like to thank all of our analysts for joining us tonight. We'll start an introduction with Adam Silverman. Adam, thank you for joining. We have all the way from the United Kingdom, Saren Kwok. Saren. And David Hood, the venerable, one of the most influential people in all of diplomacy and the North American hobby in particular, who just had a successful run at DixieCon. So thank you for joining us, David.
Glad to be here.
And let's get right to it. We've got a lot going on tonight. So first, let's take a look at what happened last month in the Virtual Diplomacy League. So we have our top 7 new league leader, Christian Brown, moving up 2 places from 3rd. He is our new leader with 240 points. Tim Crosby moves up 4 places into 2nd. John Anderson drops 2 places to 3rd. Jason Bennett moves up 2 to 4th. Wes Ketchum stays even, but had to work to get there, I believe. Roni Mordanov drops down 4 places and to 6th, and Bradley Grace, that is a typo on my part, should be in 7th place, moving up 3 places. And in our positions 8 to 14, we have Jackson Roberts, new entry, played 3 games last month, so already has 136 points. Steve Hogue, 121 points, drops down to 9th. Nicola Talley, new entry, familiar name to those watching DBNI. Brandon Dix joins us, drops 1 place into 11th. Jonathan Strange is a new addition to the league, playing 2 games with 105 points. In 13th place, we have Aiden Lewis, another new entry with 4 games. So I guess not new. That was my mistake on there. And then Franz Hansen in 14th, dropping down 1 place. A lot of new names and a lot of movement. It's what is pretty typical at this time of the year. David, how did we get our new top 3?
Well, part of it is you have to be present to play. So in Christian's case, the reason that he's currently leading and he started off in 3rd place is that he simply added a 4th score to his score by playing last time. Actually, in fact, he played 2 games last time. And even though he did not top either of the games he played last time, that additional score pushed him forward because of the way the scoring works here. You have to play a number of boards in order to score well. Timothy Crosby, on the other hand, was able to leapfrog a couple of spaces with his game. And those that were watching last month know that the featured game, the last game, was the one that Timothy actually topped as Russia. He and Christian Brown were allied, and he stabbed Christian at the end to top that board, and then was interviewed about it here on League Night. So those that were watching last month remember how he ended up going there. And then as far as John Anderson is concerned, he dropped down simply because he didn't play. So hopefully once everybody gets their 3rd and 4th scores in here, we'll have a little more apples to apples comparison. But right now, Timothy Crosby and Christian Brown in 2nd and 1st, based upon the fact that they played last week and played well last week.
Yeah, and for those of you who didn't hear my absolutely fantastic best opening intro ever while I was muted, so that would be all of you, I did kind of speak to the idea that we're in for some stranger things at this point of the season. So we've got a lot of movement, especially because you've got, this is the point where some players are getting 4 games, and so therefore they're getting their full score, while other players are coming in with 1, 2, 3, and one good score could put you up towards the top. And so those those players with the 4 places are going to have to work a lot harder than those who don't have their full scores yet. So that's going to result in a lot of movement for the next couple of months while the dust kind of settles. Awesome. Well, let's take a quick look right now at some statistics. Just a quick reminder, here on League Night, we are tracking a couple of stats. TS, that's the player's average share of the board top. So TS stands for top share at the end of their games. CAP, centers above average or below, centers above or below the average player. Cap 04 is centers above or below the average player at the end of 1904. EFF is efficiency, the percentage of successful orders. COL stands for collaboration, supports given or received by foreign units. And then GT, that's give and take. That's the difference between foreign supports given and received. Positive numbers represent more supports and negative numbers represent giving. And we've divided those into 2 categories. One is positive and the other is negative, because in several of those statistics, some of them are kind of reflected as they kind of correlate strongly with standings, while others don't. And so those that don't correlate as strongly, we've categorized as style, because there's lots of ways to play this game, and that's what keeps this fun. And I love watching whenever you can see players that have wildly different statistics, especially in that style side, because it shows you there's more than one way to play this game. So with that, let's take a quick look at a what we call the meta moment. Let's see how we're looking from kind of a powers perspective. Adam, why don't you talk us through what we're looking at here?
Yeah, so this is the percent of top share that each of the powers has earned, and we have a comparison between all DBNI games that we have on record, which is, I think, roughly 100 games, and then that's the dark purple bars, and then the light lavender bars are the statistics strictly for 2022, which I think is a small sample size, only about 11 games. So we maybe need to kind of look at this in terms of the early meta on the season. And I think, if you look at this, we can see that across all 100 or so games on the record, it's actually a fair balance between the powers. There's nothing that's incredibly overpowered or incredibly underpowered. We see a little bit of a little bit better top share by Russia than by some of the others. Austria, England, and France all kind of hovering similarly. And then Germany, Italy, and Turkey a little bit worse, but really nothing completely blowing you out of the water. About only a 6% difference between the best and the worst powers. The small sample size we have from 2022 seems to show a little bit of a different story. I think most striking are the results for France and Russia, both being the weakest powers so far in 2022, at least in terms of top share. And I think the question we have to ask ourselves there is, is this a stranger thing, or is this just a regression to the mean? Brian, you are muted again.
I'm consistent.
That's a stranger thing as well.
That's not strange. That's typical. So yeah, I think one clarification I did, I created this slide and I typed this in. This is not all DBNI. This is all VDL. So 100 games in Virtual Diplomacy League. So we're comparing.
Yeah, it makes a big difference if we're talking about virtual league games. So,
awesome. And then we also have all VDL again. Take a look at this one, Adam.
Yeah, this is the centers above or below the average power. Again, comparing VDL to the 2022 season. So again, purple bars giving us a much larger sample size. And what's quite fascinating here is if you look at the larger stat pool, the VDL pool, the dark purple bars, France here is showing quite a bit better than any of the other powers, whereas Russia is sort of right at the baseline, which is interesting since Russia also topped the most boards. So that suggests that Russia is boom or bust, and I think that's something that most of us who have played a lot of games of diplomacy would probably agree with that observation.
Yeah, absolutely. Saren, what stands out to you? You've obviously had quite a bit of success in Virtual Diplomacy League over the past couple of seasons. What stands out to you with what we've seen in the trends so far this year compared with the past 2 years?
Yeah, so it's quite early to say for this year because, as you guys have mentioned, we only have 11 games or so on record so far. But it does seem like this year is kind of going more towards the closer towards like what people would say is like the conventional wisdom of power strength, which might be for many reasons. Could be because we have like a newer player pool that is not as used to playing with each other yet and hasn't yet like developed an independent meta from that kind of conventional wisdom. But it'll be interesting to see how that evolves or stays the same as the season goes on.
Yeah, it is a good point. We've had a lot of new players this season, which is fantastic to see. And we've got some kind of spoiler alert here, some of our more familiar players returning this month. So I'll be watching to see if that has any kind of impact on where this meta moves to. David or Adam, do either of y'all have any opinions on what we just saw?
Well, it is striking, of course, the Russia discrepancy between overall VDL and this season. Again, probably just because we're so early, but that includes the game I just mentioned last month, where I'm talking about the other graphic that showed the gigantic difference there in the case of Russia for cap score or cap rating. And that includes the Russia game where Tim Crosby stabbed Turkey at the end and got that big result last time. So Russia really has been through the ringer this season, and we'll see tonight if maybe the Russians can turn that around and have a little more boom and a little less bust.
Fascinating to see Turkey at almost, I think they were plus 0.8 in the cap, which really suggests we might be seeing a reversion of the trend of killing turkeys if Turkey, on average is starting to see some good results.
My personal take on this, I was talking to a couple of folks while we were prepping this show. I think this could be a reaction to all of the errors that we saw in the previous year. If you look at these statistics, you can see Austria and Turkey both increasing and Russia decreasing. I don't know if I'm ready to say that the error is better for Russia, but in these, at least with the trends we've seen so far, I think that would be one possible takeaway. So be watching to see if that is in fact the case. Awesome. Well, next up, let's take a quick look at our league leaders. So in third place, we've got John Anderson. Looking at his statistics, of course, did not play last month. Top share at 51%, cap at 6.1, cap 04, 0.9, efficiency 6.2, collaboration 3.5, give and take 3.3. So really, really high across the board. Does anything stand out to anyone about John's statistics? Anything we can take away from what we're looking at here?
The most important number on this screen is VDL games 2, which means that he's still got more scores to add, and that could really make a difference when he comes back and plays some more games this season.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, next up, we've got Tim Crosby. Tim, of course, coming off of that strong performance last month, propelling him into second. Has those 4 games, and you'll also notice for the first time this season, we have ordinals. We last year or last broadcast had ordinals from all of the 2020 to 2022 season. Found another typo here. This is just the 2022 season now. So now that we're 4 games in, we can really focus the lens so we can see what's going on this season. So in this season, Tim's doing pretty well, 24% top share. That's the second highest of the 4 players who have played 4 games so far. So take those ordinals with a grain of salt. That's not a huge player pool, but it's a good way to start the season for Tim. And then
Brian, is it curious to you to see such a high positive collaboration score and such a low negative give and take score?
Well, I think that just means that Tim has done a very good job of talking other people into supporting him. So he's collaborating a lot. It's just that collaboration's going one way so far. So you can get some good scores that way. That's a valid way to play the game. And it's not like he's just going out and doing it on his own. But I don't know if that's going to last. And then our league leader, Christian Brown. I'm really glad to put this one up. I'm glad we've got this filtered to the 2022 season because last month we put Christian, he was in 3rd place, and those statistics did not align with what we typically see someone in 1st place of any league. And this month, I think it's much, much more reflective of the play that we've seen from Christian recently. He is a player that has matured quite a bit, and you can see top share at 27%. His centers above average player, Capo 4, and efficiency. Of all the players who played 4 games, he has the highest scores out of all of those, as one might expect from the league leader. So anything anyone has to say about Tim or about Christian?
Well, I will say something about both Christian and Timothy. It really doesn't apply to John as much. These are examples of players who have improved a lot since they first came on the virtual scene. In Timothy Crosby's case, I first met him face-to-face at a DixieCon. He has improved since he started playing the game in a tournament setting, which just goes to show you that the more you play, the more you practice, the better you can get. It's not, get into the hobby, get beat up some, and then I'm never going to get any better. That is not the way it works if you keep your nose to the grindstone.
Awesome. Well, if that sounds like something you'd be interested in, we've got a lot of opportunities to participate, a ton of diplomacy going on right now. David, would you mind running us through some of these tournaments? I know there's probably a couple of the European ones you may not be as familiar with, but could you run us through the upcoming tournaments, and I'll touch on the others?
Sure. The Cascadia that we see coming up here in just a couple of weeks is going to be a well-attended tournament by all accounts. Lots of travelers coming in. That is in British Columbia, has been rescheduled from January. And I think a lot of people are looking forward to that. ManorCon, which according to McCarless and others is in Leicester in the UK. I was going to say something about that in the chat, but there is a town in North Carolina named after that, which is pronounced Leicester by the locals. Just like Cairo, Illinois is pronounced instead of Cairo. But I digress. ManorCon is a big time tournament, always has been going on for decades, run by different people. So it's exciting to see face-to-face action coming back to the UK. The Summer Classic is one of the 2 virtual face-to-face tournaments left from the COVID era, with the other one being the VDC Championship in December. The Summer Classic, something that Sarah knows a lot about from, I think, winning last year. Was it last year you won, Sarah? I think it was. At any rate, a virtual tournament, which we're looking forward to people playing, even if they can't get to face-to-face. Boston Masquerade in August is, of course, a long-running tournament. This year, I believe, is being played at a game store in Cambridge. So that should be a lot of fun with Alex Maslow running it. The European DipCon is just like our North American DipCon. It moves around different locations. And this time, I believe it is in Switzerland, being hosted by the Swiss hobby. And I'm looking forward to seeing how the Europeans, promote and get their face-to-face scene back up where it ought to be, because the European scene used to be and it should be a very vibrant scene. So I'm really looking forward to that. SpireCon, I believe, is also in the UK. I'm trying to remember which town that's in, but again, exciting that we've got some UK face-to-face action coming back. And then, of course, end of September, Chicago's own Windy City Weasels hosting the Weasel Moot with Sabia Hoosier winning the tournament. Another one that I think a lot of people are looking forward to in the face-to-face circuit.
Yeah, really excited to see those UK events coming up. I'm going to butcher this, but I think it's Chester for SpireCon. But we'll put the links in the show notes to all of these events. And at the start of the show, several of these also have a QR code you can scan. It'll take you right to the event as well.
Chesterfield, according to
Chesterfield, thank you.
And I think Christopher Ward is involved in that somehow.
Yes. Yep. Absolutely. So looking forward to that. And I will definitely give a plug for Weasel Moot here in Chicago. That's my home tournament. Sabi has put in a ton of work already. We got a bunch of people coming. It's going to be great turnout, a great time. Social events planned. Definitely try and make it. And we didn't have enough space for it, but also keep in mind that in November, we have the World Diplomacy Championship face-to-face. That will be at Carnage in Vermont. And you should definitely try to make that. If you can only make one event, that's the one I would recommend you try to make. And I think really want to do a big plug for the Summer Classic. One of the upsides of not having COVID restrictions as much as we can have face-to-face events, that does come at the cost of fewer virtual events. So I'm really happy to see that we've got some virtual tournaments continuing to happen. That is going to be a huge event for the virtual community. So really excited.
Brian, one other point. I was talking to Bill Hackenbrack the other day on the phone, and he is planning to run a Liberty diplomacy tournament in Philadelphia in October. So details to come.
Great. I will now let's take a look at our upcoming leagues. Saren, can you walk us through this one?
Yep. So we have the Nexus Press League, which is continuing on. Already kind of like there's a season going on right now, and that is an extended deadline. So it's played on the Nexus League server. We also have some virtual face-to-face leagues. So the French Diplomacy League, the Tour of Britain, which next will take place on the weekend of the July 10th. So the French Diplomacy League and the Tour of Britain both happening at quite similar times, but seeing as one is in French and one is in English, not too much overlap with those. Meanwhile, of course, we have the Virtual Diplomacy League, as watchers are all familiar with, and we will be commenting on that tonight. And of course, we have another round of the French Diplomacy League coming up on July the 24th. And I think the Nexus Press League, those are just dates for the waves, if I understand correctly. So those are launched every couple weeks, and the league continues.
Absolutely. And I've been playing in the Nexus Press League and not doing too great, but it has been so much fun. We've got some really good talent from both the virtual face-to-face and face-to-face community with a lot of the extended deadline folks. And it's been really fun for me to play some games. A lot of times in virtual play, we don't get the chance to have big drawn out games that go longer time limits and things like that, just because physical exhaustion is a factor for face-to-face and virtual. We've had a couple of extended deadline games. My most recent ones have been very much battles at the stalemate line, that you just don't get that kind of action consistently in face-to-face all of the time. So it's good to mix it up. I encourage everybody to find different ways to play the game. It will make you a better player. And speaking of different ways to play, some items that do not qualify for DB&I, which is why we didn't list them, but a great ways to get involved would be the Speedboat League. We've got Gunboat Leagues. We've got a new live press games, like really short timelines over at WebDip, which has got a brand new, very attractive interface with some cool bots and stuff. So lots of ways to play. If you are at all interested, find what you enjoy and go do that. And if you enjoy what you've seen so far tonight, please remember to like and subscribe. That really helps with the YouTube algorithm, helps share this community and these games with other players who YouTube thinks might enjoy the game. So participation in chat, liking the video, subscribing to the channel, and commenting in the comments all help promote the broadcast to the greater community. So thank you. And that wraps up the opening. So let's go around the horn and let's get some storylines here. I'm going to just start at the top of my screen and move in clockwise order. Saren, that means you're up first. What are you going to be watching for tonight's games?
Yep. So looking at the roster for tonight's games, we've got some quite exciting big names from last season coming back who haven't been playing or haven't been playing as much this season. We've got Farron returning this month's VDL. We've got Karthik coming back. We've got Nicolas Taillet playing his second and possibly third games, I believe. So it will be quite exciting to see where the big names from the previous season who haven't been playing as much, where they go now.
And David.
Well, I'm going to follow up on what we saw earlier with the power rankings and see if there's some hope for Russia. And does the Turkish hope continue? At some point, is France going to get reined in? We all know how strong France is in general in diplomacy meta, has been for a long time, certainly is now. Are people going to react to that as the season progresses by trying to restrain the early strength of France defensively? So it'd be interesting to see how those power ranking stories continue in tonight's action.
And Adam.
I'm wondering who's going to go for it. We've seen a lot of these lovey-dovey two-way, three-way board top endings in VDL games. It's a safe thing to do. It makes everyone feel comfortable. But on the other hand, we've seen some stabs, like David mentioned last time with Timothy, going for it at the end to get the bigger result. So who's going to do that today?
All right. Well, once again, I'd like to thank each of you for joining, for watching the show tonight, and for watching our opening segment. And let's transition over and get to our games. All right, so starting tonight's games, let's take a quick look. As Saren kind of hinted at, we've got some big, well-known diplomacy players joining the league tonight. And the rank that you see on here is ranked by their DBNI ranking from last season. Zach and I are getting ready to do the first edition of the DBNI Countdown show. We are not committing, but we are going to do our best to try and get that out for this coming weekend. So keep your eyes open. We'll have updated rankings after that. So for those of you such as Karthik who have a nice DBNI ranking of 2, enjoy it while it lasts, because we're going to have more Stranger Things happen with these standings after that show is released. But for tonight, we're welcoming Karthik, Farron, Nicola, Jason Massbaum, who won last year's DBNI, McAllis, Brandon, Liam, Tommy Anderson, Ben Kelman, and Peter McNamara. I believe every single one of these players was a participant of last year's DBNI. So we got a lot of big names returning to the Virtual Diplomacy League this year, or this month. So looking forward to watching that. And then before we get started, though, I do want to mention we are this month is Pride Month in the United States. And in honor of Pride, Virtual Diplomacy League organizers Zachary Moore and Sabia Huja have named tonight's VDL games in honor of LGBTQ activists. Pride is a celebration of equality and inclusion, but we must never forget that it's also a protest. This nation's first Pride marches were held in 1969 in June in Stonewall. And that is why in the United States, June is Pride Month, to commemorate those marches and those protests. On Friday, the U.S. Supreme Court ruled 5-4 to reverse Roe versus Wade. In his concurring opinion, Justice Clarence Thomas also called on the court to revisit other watershed civil rights rulings, including those legitimizing same-sex marriage and consensual same-sex intimacy. According to the Human Rights Campaign, more than 340 anti-LGBTQ bills have been introduced in the United States so far in 2022. As a hobby, it's crucial that we stand up for diversity, inclusion, and equity. This is just a game, but even in a small community such as ours, it's not enough to merely be tolerant of individuals with different backgrounds. We must advocate for them and constantly work towards creating a welcoming and supportive environment. Never stop improving. We must never stop fighting. So please keep all of that in mind as we're going through and talking about those who have fought for where we are, and we need to make sure we're fighting to keep where we are. So with that, let's take a look at our first games. Go ahead and pull those up. All right. And okay, so we have game 100. Austria's Brandon Dix from Santa Rosa, California. These places are the VDL places now. In 11th place. England, we have Christopher Ward from Chester, Great Britain in 17th. France, we have Zachary Moore from Minneapolis, who is our commissioner. His score and place will not count, so he was filling that board so that we can make 7. Germany, we've got Tim Crosby, currently in 2nd. Italy, we've got Christian Brown, the league leader. Russia has Brandon Fogel from Chicago in 24th. And Turkey, we have Ben Kelman. Oh my goodness, I can't wait to watch this game. Does anybody have any comments or thoughts on this?
It looks like a bloodbath possible, is what it looks like. I think this is the morning. This is the round 2 game. There's another game that's got the European players and so forth in it. But this is going to be an awesome game to watch. I cannot wait myself.
For those who haven't been to a face-to-face tournament when the boards are called out, this is the kind of board that's called out and the whole room says, "Oh my God, I'm glad I'm not on that one," except for the 7 who are on it.
Yes, and sometimes Adam Silverman is the one that calls out that game. His own tournament.
All right. Well, David, we are going to give you a break for a moment, and the 3 of us get the pleasure of calling this game. And then we are going to go to the round 1 game that I accidentally overlooked, but I'm too excited about this one. So we're going to get right to it. Let's go. All right, spring of 1901. We're going to keep it quick. We're going to focus on about 1 minute per season. Saren, I'm going to have you start us out, and we'll alternate with Adam. You'll take the 1902. So Saren, you'll be on odd years. Adam, you'll be on even. Let's go.
So immediately we have Zach and Timothy deciding that they are going to ostensibly make a play for Venice, with them doing the France-Germany entering Piedmont and Tyrolia play in spring '01 that we haven't been seeing very often. This is nothing short of a statement play, and it'll be interesting to see what they do with that. Because at the same time, Christian Brown is quite aggressively going against Brandon by walking into Trieste and following up into Venice. So there's immediately there's like a big hotspot in the Venice, Tyrolia, Piedmont area. To all the way to the east with Brandon Fogel, and then it's not nearly as interesting with just like an Armenian fist bump, something that has become fairly popular in recent games.
This is just a nutso opening. I've seen it a few times from the West, and it could work if it's part of a Western triple, though that could leave Germany in the lurch. But we could see some interesting things like now going to the Western Med here while putting France into Venice or something like that. It could be quite interesting.
They do take Venice out of it, deciding to give it to Zach, the one whose score won't count between the two of them. So watch that. At the same time, though, it's not all a Western triple, as we have Chris Ward and Zach bouncing in Belgium, and we have Timothy electing to give Brandon Fogel Sweden. So what this indicates is that France and Germany look like they're cooperating together and leaving England out of it, which is a very aggressive thing to do when you're going after Venice in 1901. Of course, they couldn't have taken Venice without the help of Brandon Dix, who doesn't seem too happy that Chris walked into a centers in 1901, and might be doing okay out of it, as he temporarily has been, cooperating and playing ball, supporting the taking of Greece, which he couldn't have stopped anyway.
This is a great start for Brandon in Russia, and I really want to highlight the move Warsaw to Moscow, which seems really, really unusual here. But I think it's a really smart play by Brandon to sort of equivocate and not drop into Galicia as many Russians would be tempted to do in this position. It also, you would normally see either Warsaw to Galicia or Warsaw to Ukraine. Moscow gives them some leverage on the north. I'm fully expecting to see a Fleet St. Petersburg build here and having the flexibility to do something with it, which he would lose if he moved down to Ukraine and couldn't follow up the fleet from St. Petersburg up with that army.
All right, so we've got a two-build France, which is not unusual, but in a very unusual position. What are we expecting for adjustments from Zach here?
Fleet Marseille, Army Paris, I guess. I mean, he could build two fleets, but I feel like that would be really taking a big risk.
Sarah, do you agree?
Yeah, I agree. It would be funny to see two fleets, but I don't think it's going to go for it.
It would be
the other one that I'm really interested in is Brandon Fogel. What are we expecting those adjustments to be?
It would be a bit lame to put an army in St. Pete. I think it's always a bit lame to put an army in St. Pete in 1901. So I think he's going to put a fleet, and surely he'll put it in the north coast. The south coast would be a bit strange here. So I'd be expecting the fleet in the north coast and the army in Warsaw. He waves.
Awesome.
Why not?
But Brandon's a much better player than me. I can't pretend to know what he's thinking.
I don't know that that's true, but the first part, the second part, probably.
Look at the English build, though.
Yeah, that's and the French. I mean,
went the other way.
They definitely.
I think Zach's got himself in a sticky situation here.
How sticky is it, Adam?
Yeah, well, I mean, he encouraged the Italians to go to Western Med, and they do it. Which I mean, I think these are some strange choices by the Italians. Certainly, going to the Western Med seems reasonable, but they really just fostered an AT, and that's what they've got. So this is going to be a rough game for Christian if he can't negotiate something with one of his neighbors. Zach is. It looks like Zach is really just setting up to be cautious against Timothy, but really trying to protect himself against Wardy's fleets, which are clearly coming. And otherwise, we also see that Brandon shifts south, so he's maybe going to try to take advantage of something down there. Maybe make a play into Austria with Italian help, or a Turkish stab, which could be fairly straightforward at this point, to take Greece and make a play on Serbia and Budapest and the whole 9 yards there. But if all three powers decide to make those moves. Yeah, and indeed, that's what we actually get here, and I think it's there's probably a strong incentive to do that, with Italy basically saying, okay, you're an Ionian, I'm fighting the Austrians, so do what you want, and but if you want to take out Austria, I'm on board with that, and so that's exactly what we see here. This is going to be a short, unfortunate game for Brandon, but Brandon Dix, I should say. Brandon Fogel is looking okay, but that's the way it goes with Austria sometimes. Interestingly enough, the Italians do manage to retake Venice with some help. Actually, not with any help. They do it by themselves by tapping the support from Tyrolia. So that's a nice play there, and a good move by Zach here in taking Portugal, protecting the Mid-Atlantic, holding things out, gets another build. That'll be quite interesting to see where that goes. If I'm seeing this correctly, the Germans supported England into Belgium, which is really quite interesting and not necessarily what I would have expected to see here. So could that signal some kind of shift in the alliance structure coming up? I don't know.
Saren, what do you take from this?
It looked like since the beginning of 1902, Chris and Zach were both courting Timothy very hard, and Timothy basically, he was the belle of the ball there. And in the spring, he didn't really choose, but in the fall, it certainly looks like he's at least choosing to give Wardy Belgium, although he doesn't allow him back into the North Seas. That seems like an arranged bounce, but there's still a little bit of plausible deniability here for Timothy to then make a deal with Zach. So he's not fully committed from my perspective.
Yeah, I do wonder though, Sarah, and it is possible that he moved Denmark to north and Kiel to Denmark rather than Helgoland, and I wonder if he was trying to be tricky there, giving him the support to get him into the Belgium while following up into the North Sea, right?
Yep, that's a thing some players do.
What are we watching for in adjustments this season, Adam?
What is Brandon going to do? I guess is the main thing on everybody's mind, right? I think he's probably going to put one or two armies down and not build in St. Petersburg, would be my suspicion based on how the last year goes. I think he's got a good demilitarized situation. He's not fighting anyone in the north. They're all occupied elsewhere, especially if he feels like Germany is occupied or about to be occupied, either fighting England or fighting France. He's got no reason just yet to get involved in that fray.
Are we seeing this?
He'll build at least Army Moscow or Army. He'll build probably Army Moscow. He might wave two. He might wave one again, but Warsaw. Okay. Good.
All right. Spring of 03, Saren.
Yep, so it looks like a temporary détente, at least, between Chris and Zach, with them working out something where Chris looks like he's going after Brandon, and Timothy also looks to be going after Brandon, so there's a little bit of EG pressure on Brandon there, and looks like it's building up. In the south, Ben and Brandon just continue pushing forward. I'll be interested to see long term what happens with the Black Sea. Right now they have a deal where they're bouncing, but is that going to be the long term arrangement, or are they going to look for some other solution to handle the Seventh Fleet? Always a big question in RTs.
Yeah, I like what Chris and Timothy are doing here. They're basically saying, you know what, Brandon, you keep waving. You decided you don't want to protect the North. That's fine. We'll take the North. We don't need to make a big fight. We don't need to invade you. But those centers are better ours than yours if you're not going to use the builds anyway.
So quite amusing. Brandon attempts to do the only thing that could keep him St. Pete this year by supporting that southbound. And of course, it would have worked if Timothy hadn't been against him, as Timothy clearly was taking Sweden for himself. So it looks like temporary peace in the West, at least. None of the three powers directly aggressing that much against each other. Zach again moving into Piedmont to play some sort of role in the East. In the East, it is quite a lot of pandemonium around Christian's territories, but miraculously, Christian actually doesn't lose anything, as around him, Brandon and Ben just dismantle Brandon. Brandon, the other Brandon, Brandon Dix. Goodbye, Brandon. Thanks for playing. It really sucks when that happens as Austria, but it happens sometimes. And it'll be interesting to see what happens down here with Zach entering the Med and Ben clearly going right after Christian's homeland. So how Christian navigates that will play a big role in determining how this game shakes out.
There's a real problem with what Zach is doing here, and that problem is that he doesn't have enough fleets to be effective. If he shifts his second fleet down south, he's leaving himself wide open to the English. But if he doesn't even if he does swing that fleet down south, unless Turkey is actively making a play here, it's going to be really hard for him to get anything out of Italy. I'm not quite sure why he's doing this. Had he built that third fleet, I think this might have been a path forward. But with three armies on the board, he's really going to be just shifting balance on the other side. And I think Ben Kelman is going to do really well as a result.
There is a possible element of like Zach's score not actually counting. He's like a fill, like maybe he doesn't want to like make too aggressive a play and like do something like going after Wardy very hard here. Like that feels quite mean if your score doesn't count, and like that's exactly the kind of like moral hazard that your score not counting is meant to prevent. But like in some cases, like it's going to play a role.
You wouldn't do anything aggressive like open Spring 01 to Piedmont, is what you're saying.
that was with Timothy's consent, so it's different. You can be like, I'm doing this thing for somebody else. But going after Chris would be like a unilateral play.
Okay, well, we'll go with that.
I don't know. I've never played for like no score, so I don't know how it works.
I think you got to highlight Zach's comment here, Brian.
That's true. So, Sarah, I want to highlight something you said. You were talking about a lot of pandemonium happening in the East, and somehow Christian Brown managing to come out okay from that situation. I like you, don't know how long that will last, but I think that's this is not a one-time event. This is a trend that we've seen from Christian. He's one of those players that just seems to thrive in chaos and unusual situations. So I am not at all surprised to see him finding a way to use the chaos to his advantage. And I feel like that's why he's in first place in the league right now.
Yeah, it's curious, isn't it, that Ben didn't support Brandon down into Trieste, Brandon Dix.
Yeah.
Something a lot of players would have done.
Winter of 03. I think we're probably going to get that Russian build this time. That's my prediction. Is there anything anyone has their eye on for these adjustments?
Maybe Wardy will build in Liverpool again.
Let's find out. Nope.
No, he doesn't.
The Turkish build is interesting, actually. I think that was probably... I know that I would have spent a lot of time thinking about that, and I don't know that I would have come up with the Army Smyrna, maybe, but it certainly is more flexible than building another fleet. On the other hand, you're sort of stuck in a way without that fourth fleet. So interesting.
Sarah, do you think that's signaling any intent?
I don't know, right? Like, it's tough because like I would want a third army as well. Like I think it's like a decent long-term build. I don't think it's necessarily like wrong.
Well, in my opinion, it's a patient build. Hopefully this is the time for patience. I do like playing Turkey as a patient power, so we'll see what happens. All right. Adam.
Yeah, here it is. Wardy is making an aggressive move against the Germans here. Quite fascinating. Going into the Helgoland Bight, back up to the North Sea. What I really would have liked to see if he wanted to make this stab count is moving St. Petersburg to Norway, right, to get that extra unit on Sweden as well. Here would have really helped make some of the attacks he has planned. Otherwise, and Zach is moving up into Burgundy. I mean, is Zach going to be part of this? It looks like that. It looks like Tim was trying to support Picardy to Belgium, which wasn't taken. So that's also kind of interesting. Yeah, this is just pretty bizarre what's happening in the West. I don't know a lot of what to make of it, but obviously there was some breakdown in communications with Zach sending his fleets into Brest and Mao is just an odd place for them to be sent here. What else? We have the convoy to Albania, which makes a lot of sense, though it is very risky if that Ionian Sea gets dislodged. That prevents the convoy, and basically nothing happens. We get an arranged bounce in the Black Sea, and Zach getting support from Brandon Fogel into Tyrolia, really suggesting that this is an aggressive play against the Germans here. Wow. Let me process this for a second. Well,
sorry, I just want to say one thing. Wardy went for the kill shot with Timothy and lined that up, and then decided he wasn't going to attempt it and just moved back out immediately.
I think part of the problem is, if he had that unit in Norway, I think that he can guarantee. Well, he's still got a little bit of a guess, I suppose. It's not probably Skag might have been better than if he went to Norway and Skag in North, that would have guaranteed him Sweden or Denmark. But without the guaranteed build, I guess he just decided it wasn't worth the risk. Of course, to back off and go into the English Channel is an interesting choice there. The self bounce in Norway is fine, but if he's going to attack Zach now, why not go to the Norwegian and just cover Norway from St. Petersburg? You don't have anything Russian over there to worry about at the moment. I'm seeing the note from McCarless and that he had Holland guaranteed, and that is true. He can tap Kiel from Helgoland and then force it from that way. Of course, that puts the trust into Zach Moore, who has also shown himself willing to go either way. Subsequent terms as well. So, we ultimately, I guess it wasn't worth it to him. But Zach does take Munich because Kiel supports Holland in this case. What's interesting to me, though, is the Bohemia holds order. After Brandon supported the French up into Tyrolia last turn, he does not continue with the support into Munich. That is quite fascinating from both a diplomatic standpoint. The other thing that's fascinating is now we have the Russian stab on the Turks supporting the Italians into Serbia and dropping into the Black Sea. So I think we're about to see those held up Russian builds being used. Brandon, I guess, had some reason for the not wanting the French to necessarily get into Munich or not wanting to be seen as facilitating that. Again, it feels like, I don't know exactly what went on in the negotiation, but that's really an interesting one to me.
All right, winter of 1904. Our only adjustments. We've got Zach building 1 and Christian building 1, and then Ben's got a tough choice on a disband. Probably Albania, I would guess. No good choices there. We've got a fleet from Brest and disband of Albania and army in Rome. Saren, what stands out to you with those adjustments?
I thought it was interesting, that Zach got that build at all, to be honest. the thing that Brandon did, which Adam commented on in not supporting Timothy to hold Munich, makes a lot of sense if Brandon knew that Wardy was going to do what Wardy did. Like looking at the map, I wouldn't have predicted that, like not hearing any of the negotiations. So like it really does indicate that Brandon somehow got wind of that and like thought that Zach needed that build. So now that like Zach's been given that build, he's able to put Fleet Breast and like, you know, effectively prevent like Wardy and Timothy from overrunning him, which of course if you're Brandon is something you very much want to see. So I mean that build kind of like stems directly from Bohemia not supporting Munich, and I would be quite fascinated to know whether Brandon did in fact know that Zach was going to need that.
Yeah, one of the biggest non-orders that we've seen all game for sure.
Brandon has done a nice job, and I'm assuming Brandon has a major hand in this, in sowing some real chaos in the west side of the board, right? You have Germany getting attacked by France, France getting attacked by England fighting now. I mean, there is no real alliance structure in the west side of the board. It looks like both Wardy and Zach can probably come out of this okay, and it would not shock me if they get together this turn and figure stuff out. Again, I don't know what the diplomatic history is in there, but the position on the board tells me that the two of them should probably be working together. Zach should be getting some fleets into the south, and they should be pushing through Germany before Russia takes any of it. But we'll see how that goes. Well, actually, Russia's not really going to make a play in Germany. I'm guessing Russia's going to convoy to Armenia now. So we'll see. But I think it would make a lot of sense for the two of them to start working together. There's probably more dots for them to get that way than headbutting against each other. You know, if we start seeing things like Norwegian to North Atlantic, that whole kind of thing. I mean, I don't know that really helps either of them very much.
Well, we're going to pause here for a moment, and we'll play Who Do You Like in just a moment. But before we do that, I just want to talk about Audre Lorde is who are the activist who our board is named after. Audre Lorde was a Black American writer, feminist, womanist, librarian, and civil rights activist. She was a self-described Black lesbian mother warrior poet who dedicated her life and her creative talent to confronting and addressing injustices of racism, sexism, classism, and homophobia. Her poetry is known for the power of its call for social and racial justice, as well as its depictions of queer experience and sexuality. So for this game, we will honor Audre Lorde. Adam, I'll start with you. This is a really fun game for us to watch. I can see it going a lot of ways, but I'm making you pick one. Who do you like?
I'm going to go well against the grain, and I'm going to vote for Christian Brown. I think Christian has just done an incredible job in this game. I thought his position at the beginning of this game was terrible, and he's worked himself out of it into what is right now, I think, fairly decent. It's hard to bet against Brandon, to be perfectly honest with you. He does probably have more obvious room for growth, but he's going to have a friend, and that may be Christian, and Christian may be able to take advantage of it. I just really like what he's done in this game, and he's really weaseled his way out of a bad situation, so to speak.
And Saren.
I mean, Christian's fortunes just like went up in a very noticeable manner, so I'm not sure that call is really that far against the grain, Adam. Let's see. I don't know. For me personally, like I always look at the players first, so like it would be like a different basis of making that call for me, and I honestly, I don't think I'd want to be on this board at all. But if I had to be, God, this is tough. I could stand playing Timothy Crosby to pick something different from Adam, because I think that to be with Chris, to be with Wardy and Zach in that kind of position, to be honest, I don't think they're going to work together like after this much. And I think I could work with either of them better than the two of them could work together.
Looks like Mikarlis Make-A-Wish Kamaridis, he agrees with you. So you're fellow Brit saying yes to German success. So yeah, this is fun. Okay, and here we've got Chris Kelly saying we got Ben as a dark horse chance. So this is a great game. I'll just leave it at that. This is why we're here.
I think you can put yourself in the shoes of any of these powers and think to yourself, what would I be doing right now, right? I mean, Ben has got to be making hard pitches both to Christian and to Brandon at this point, right? I mean, Ben really doesn't want to see a Russian army in Armenia right now. So what is your pitch? What's your pitch to Brandon that you can give him something better than, stuffing an army down your back, right? I mean, this is tough. And what's your pitch to Christian that says, hey, you know what? You're better off working with me. I know I've got a bunch of fleets, but you're better off working with me than with Brandon because what? I don't know, right? So
Brandon's got more upside. I don't know.
I think the only passable pitch is to be Brandon's Janissary for like a small center survival, which is what I'd do. But I make that kind of pitch quite a lot.
All right, spring of 05, Saren.
Yep. So whatever pitch Ben made to Brandon didn't quite work, as Brandon does convoy into Armenia. But at the same time, we have, very interestingly, Timothy Crosby convoying into Livonia and moving Berlin to Prussia at the same time. I don't think this is the correct play. I am, in fact, shocked to see this. I'm shocked to see that Timothy is vacating Kiel and Berlin to go after Brandon, while Zach Moore is still sitting in Munich and can't, he literally can't take back Munich, even if Zach gives it back to him this year, because he no longer has a unit adjacent to Munich in order to take it. So I am really shocked to see this. Even if you were doing something like this, there's still at the very least, move Berlin to Silesia instead of to Prussia. I don't see what it can do from Prussia that it can't do in Silesia. So this is really shocking to me. But I suppose he thinks he has a good deal with Zach going on, because Zach does support him into Belgium, piffing that fleet that Wardy put in there. So Belgium is now where English fleets go to die, apparently. Wardy thought he had Zach on side. After Zach had built in Brest, Wardy did not have Zach on side. And this attempt to go after him is not going to work. Mm. Yep. As he set up to do, Timothy does take Warsaw and doesn't actually lose anything at home while leaving himself so open. So I guess this worked out for him, because he gets a build now. So good for him. In the meantime, in the East, Brandon and Christian just continue dismantling Ben. That's gotta hurt.
I love that in this game we have the current VDL League leader working with last year's VDL League leader, and who is being attacked by the second place league in the league standings right now. So a lot of meta tournament standing implications in this game, as well as the particular game performance to keep in mind.
I think the theme in the West is that indecision may or may not be Wardy's problem here.
All right. So we've got another fleet from Zach and army from Tim, and another fleet from Christian. Adam, what are these adjustments telling us?
Well, I'm just laughing at the Turkish disband and leaving the army in Albania. I mean, I guess maybe you can negotiate something with that, and the 3 fleets in the home centers isn't really going to help you. But it's a little awkward and likely to be destroyed.
That's absolutely the correct disband, because otherwise Ankara just gets piffed on the next turn.
I think Albania probably gets piffed here as well. But
yes, Albania. I didn't see that. Yeah, no, Albania is useful to Brandon, and Ankara definitely isn't. So I see where he's going with this.
Ankara, you can potentially dislodge the Black Sea. I don't know what you do with it, though. It's hard to argue that there was a good disband for him.
The best disband is to not disband, Adam. Why doesn't everybody just do that?
That's right. Sorry. What is Wardy doing of all?
Wordy, what Wordy is doing in Wales at least is guessing correctly. Well done to Wordy on that. Look at that.
North to Edinburgh?
I mean, to be honest, I think this is the pitch to Timothy. Like, he has to guarantee to vacate Helgoland for Timothy to have any chance of working with him, and like going to the Channel obviously isn't going to work. So he has to vacate to Eddie, as bizarre as it looks.
Well, it looks like Brandon is going to be on like 7 or so centers with only one home center. That's kind of entertaining. Who needs Moscow and Warsaw when you're Russia and you have all of Austria, right?
Last season we saw Nick Amatangelo top the board, a lone top as Russia with only one home center. So.
But you know, my pick of Christian is looking better and better, I have to say.
Yeah.
And the German one doesn't look as risky
at
the time either. So, so there is very, very strong correlation between Italian and German success. Not always, but I'm not at all surprised to see both of those powers rising kind of in parallel.
This is pretty cool that, you know, Timothy has the opportunity to retake Munich, but he chooses not to. And I think that's really important to think about rebuilding a dynamic on that side of the board, right? And now we finally do see a consistent dynamic where there actually is something that resembles an alliance, that EF going on. And Wardy is probably sending the message here that, you know, it's going to go to Tim. I'm sorry, it's going to go. Yeah, everything's going to go to Tim. Zach, you're not getting anything. And that's certainly what looks like is about to happen here. On the other side of the board, wow, you know, Christian has split his units, and he's taking some centers here. He's taking Smyrna here. We bid a fond farewell to Ben, but Christian's got some options now. Quite interesting.
Saren, what are we seeing here?
A much needed build for Brandon, who got it despite going down to one home center.
Yeah, this is the problem for Timothy, which is he can't hold Moscow and Warsaw, and he doesn't actually try to. He was one unit short to be able to do that. He needed that army up in Livonia or Prussia, or actually probably both if he wanted to hold them long term. So he walks out, takes St. Petersburg and Munich back so he can stay even here. And the plays against the English will continue. Norway holding rather than going to Norwegian is a little bit puzzling to me, but everything else seems fairly logical. What's more interesting, I think, is the moves by the Italian, who are setting up to attack the Russians in Austria and in the Turkish area. And I think that they probably have a pretty reasonable position to at least take Vienna and maybe Budapest as well come the fall.
Saren, what's your take? Why on earth is Italy stabbing Brandon?
So normally, like, you wouldn't do this, right? Like, I mean, like with FG seemingly like united and Wardy still like savable, and like there's still the potential of pushing past the line if Wardy stays alive, and like he can stay alive if you go like fully after France and Germany right now and like throw all that pressure on them. Like, I mean, the way I play is like I'd want that alliance to stick together, and I'd want to look for a way to make it work. But it looks like there was some tension here, and I wonder if it was because Brandon wanted to send Khan to Aegean. Or do something with that fleet other than like letting it be destroyed or like going back to Seb or whatever. And like Christian wasn't up for that because I'd want to have heard that negotiation, because like whatever Brandon said, it didn't reassure Christian that this was the time to continue on with the alliance. Like, and I'm pretty sure like Brandon wanted to continue on with the alliance here. It makes a lot of sense for him to do so. So yeah, what did he say that like made Christian, or like why did Christian just make that decision not to do it?
I'll take another side of this and say that I think Christian did it because this is the time that he can do it, and his opportunity window to do it is closing fast with Brandon getting. Well, he's only going to be able to build one, but he's going to be presumably getting at least a build out of the deal. He probably still has Timothy on side to be working in that direction. You can say even though Timothy pulled back, he still has Prussia Silesia and St. Petersburg on the middle of Russia. The key for Christian, which he was clearly unsuccessful in the spring, was getting Zach to not shift his fleets. But there's still maybe an opportunity to correct that right now in the fall. And maybe the relationship with Zach is such that, okay, I've got one French fleet against me. As long as I don't get a second, I can live with this. So let's see what happens.
Saren, take us through fall of 07.
That's not what you want.
Yeah, that's not what you want. And it was a guaranteed convoy into Tuscany. So, Christian couldn't have prevented that. And Zach just decided to take advantage of it. Zach and Timothy are going to make short work of Wardy here because Wardy's losing London and Eddie. So he's not going to last very long. So that means that Zach and Timothy are free to turn their full attention to crossing the stalemate line. And with this Italian Russian absolute discohesion and this active war between them, they're not going to have any problem crossing the line. So this is the thing I was thinking in the previous turn, right? Italy and Russia had the initiative. Absolutely, they would have been the ones to cross the line if they'd gone for it at that point, probably. And if not, then it would have just been a stalemate on the line. But now Timothy and Zach are absolutely making it past, and Christian and Brandon will just have to salvage whatever they can out of that.
Is this game timed?
It is. All VDL games are time limited. They typically end somewhere between 1910 and 1912. I think 1911 is the most common year for it to end.
Okay, so there's still plenty of time in this game. So this was not I think the game's going to end kind of move. This is going to be a problem for them. And I think, Saren, your read on the board is absolutely right. There's going to be some difficulties now, and we'll see if Christian and Brandon can get it back together or not. It might be too late for that.
I mean, I don't think there's any line they can hold against Timothy and Zach from this position.
All right, Adam, take us through 1908.
Yeah, so in the north, they're continuing to just finish off the last of Wardy, but everything else from Zach is coming south. Right, we're in the Western Med, North Africa. The interesting thing is that Christian is continuing to push his attack on Brandon, so that's really not going to help in the long term for them to sort of figure out how to deal with, figure out how to get together now. So I think that Russia and Italy are probably fighting for the long haul, which means Germany is probably on top here with a close second of Zach. Amazing turnaround by Timothy. I can only assume that the Clyde order was a misorder because there's no reason why he wouldn't be supporting Zach into Liverpool from this position. So I can only assume it's a misorder. Meanwhile, Zach guesses correctly in Italy, taking Rome. There's more carnage in the Balkans that I can only speak of, but it looks like it's a little bit of a you win some, you take some, you lose some. Vienna gets Budapest, Christian gets Budapest, loses Vienna, gets Romania and Bulgaria. It's overall not going to be a good outcome if Zach and Timothy continue to push.
Oh, sorry. I meant to hide that, but sorry.
You're good. Yep. So.
Okay. I'll stop fighting with Brian for control of the
You're good.
and with respect to Zach's comment, those terms, there's a strict contract against talking about those terms. So
there you go.
They have something to do with what's going to happen at Cascadia.
All right, we'll just keep pressing on here. Spring of 1909, Saren.
Yep. So now now Timothy does allow Zach into Liverpool. Well, that's very nice of you, Timothy. Giving your ally a build, like that's but anyway, the FG continues pressing onward. Zach makes it into Tunis as Timothy makes it into Galicia, and there's just like tactically now, it's locked that there's no line from this position. So theoretically, in like a time unlimited, Zach and Timothy could like push through the whole board and take control of everything. Christian and Brandon, like things have like collapsed sufficiently between them. They're past the point of no return because like they're not making any sort of effort to like keep it together. In fact, Brandon seems to have cut some kind of deal with Timothy to just like continue fighting Christian for the in sake of the FG, which makes sense considering from his point of view how Christian's play earlier destroyed his prospects.
I'll just comment the deal that Timothy and Brandon apparently have struck is really important. And it may not matter for this game, but in time unlimited games, this is how solos happen. This is exactly how solos happen, right? Because Timothy is going to get pushed ahead by Brandon with those centers that are in his pocket behind the line that he can take later. This is how you get to 18.
This is also how we likely see a potentially new league leader for the Virtual Diplomacy League. We've got first and second place head-to-head racing for this board top. One has someone who is very upset at the other, and I give the advantage to Tim because of that.
Okay, Timothy supports Wardy back into Liverpool. So I guess this is a real stab on Zach now. Like I guess he's like.
Why do you do that when he can retreat into your own center?
Yeah, this was like I feel like this was just like an oversight because this seems like a very bizarre move when you could just like keep Zach on side and probably outrace him anyway. Like from this position, it's extremely unlikely that Zach was gonna get enough to overcome the 4-center lead that Timothy was holding. So this seems like the kind of thing you do to like at the end get the edge over your long-term ally. But like I just don't think it was necessary in the circumstance.
All right. Fair enough.
All right. So at the end of this game, Tim Crosby comes out ahead with 12 centers over 11 center France from Zachary Moore, whose score will not count for the league standings. This was probably not a time draw, I would guess, Peter. I don't have the details on that. I'm not sure if anyone does, but I suspect this was agreed to. Sorry about that. Adam, was this the right result?
In a timed game, it certainly was, and I think Tim earned the board top here. I think Zach's ability to get an alliance going in the mid game that was successful, I give credit to him as well. I think Christian did some great plays in the throughout the game. I think what set him to against Brandon obviously led to an outcome where he wasn't going to top, but ending on 8 centers is Italy. It's not going to be a terrible result for him and get some points out of it. Pretty interesting game and fascinating play all around. I enjoyed this a lot.
Saren.
Yeah, like so finding out that this was like apparently a time draw, like that makes like the last turn make a lot more sense in retrospect. So I amend my earlier comment. So like it was the time draw that's that the last turn of the game, like you see that quite a lot more. So that makes sense. Yeah, I'm not sure my perspective on like Christian's game is as optimistic as yours, Adam, because that's not just ending on 8 centers. It's ending on 8 centers without any friends and with potentially like a degradation in the amount of capital you're carrying forward in this league, because like Brandon is not gonna like easily, like he's not gonna forget that this was the decision that Christian made in this kind of circumstance, and like that's gonna, you know, everybody sees that you made this kind of decision, and like it will factor somehow into some players like future assessments in games, like knowing that this is like how you play and this is the kind of like decision you make in this sort of circumstance. Like it potentially gives away like knowledge on like the way you play and the kind of decision you make that is not the perception that you want people to have. But that's my take.
Yeah, that's one of the fun parts about playing in the league. One of the reasons I particularly enjoy this format is it is a variant, and it introduces some calculations that you would not have otherwise. But to me, that makes it a really, really fun place to play, because your decisions in one game can have a very long impact.
I think we need to be careful, though. If we take it too, the pendulum swings too far the other way, and we're so concerned about what one decision might, how one decision in one game might affect me in another. Then we're not going to have people going for it. We're not going to see dynamic play. We're not going to see people doing interesting things, because everything is too much about, well, I just got to pair up with one person and run the board, and that is what it is. So I do commend folks for taking chances, and we will make mistakes. I think even some of the top players in the world will make moves, and they make mistakes, and it wasn't the right move in this situation, but sometimes it will be the right move, and sometimes if different outcome in terms of what's on France's mind, different outcome on what's on Germany's mind, that could be a play there that actually does get you a big result.
I think you guys have missed possibly the most important story of that game, which is that they did not eliminate Brandon Fogel. That is a failure. That is a failure on the part not only of Christian, who tried but failed. It was a failure on Timothy's part, prioritizing his score over the elimination of Fogel.
I also blame Wardy.
Oh, why not? So the theme of this show that no one heard because I was on mute is Stranger Things, and this particular game was right in line with that. So thank you to the players for an interesting game. We are going to give Adam a break, and we are going to move on to game 99, which I mistakenly overlooked previously. Let's take a look at it now. All right, game 99, Albert Cashier. Albert DJ Cashier was an American soldier who served in the Union Army during the American Civil War. He was the first trans person to serve in the U.S. military. When Cashier died on October 10th, 1915, he was buried in his full uniform and given a tombstone inscribed with his male identity and military service. Playing in this game is a player that has not played in VDL this year, but is very familiar to those who have been following DBNI. Farron Jane from Austin, Texas, playing Austria. Nicolas Taillet from Paris is playing England. Another new player, Evan B, is playing in France. Germany, Karthik Konath from California. Italy, Chris Allenbach from Baton Rouge, Louisiana, which I lived in for a couple of years. So fun to see that. Russia, we've got Liam Stokes from Victoria, British Columbia, and Turkey, we have Melbourne, Australia's Peter McNamara, and winner of the first Calumet Cup back in the 2021 DBNI. Another really, really fun lineup. Anybody have anything standing out? Any storylines that they're watching for this game? Dave, I'll start with you.
Well, it's obvious to say that we've got some big names on this board, which it is, but look at the Austria and Turkey neighbors. Farron and Peter, people who have played together before in top, competitive boards, but also two people that I would say have very different play styles. And Liam, right next to him in Russia, has yet a third different play style. So I'm really looking to see how things will work in the East in this game in particular.
All right, well, let's get right to it. In spring of 1901, David, you'll have the odd years. Sarah, and we'll move you to even. Let's get to it.
All right, odd years. Let's see if we see anything odd in the odd years. The Armenia bounce, which I believe might be something that Saren has been the one popularizing. So maybe people, unless I'm wrong about it. No, it wasn't you. It was somebody else who has been popularizing.
Stubby's been the champion recently.
Uh-huh. Well, at any rate, I think that's an interesting move. Obviously, the fact that nobody went to the Black Sea is the big takeaway from the East. And one of my favorite French openings here, where you put two armies against Belgium and just send the one fleet to Iberia, is what Evan decides to do. So that's an interesting situation in the West. But clearly, the Black Sea being vacant is the big story in spring of 01. And that's followed with the Turks going ahead to Aegean Sea. So this is a pretty strong RT here in the very beginning of the game with the army going to Romania. That's really bad for Farron, at least potentially. Again, in the West, the thing that jumps out at me is the French move, or the French moves. Look at Ruhr, Burgundy to Ruhr. Again, not something you see very often, where you go ahead and take Belgium and get position on Carthage in Germany. That is quite a 1-2 punch from Evan, who appears to be working, quite well with Nicolas Taillet, who has bounced Carthage in Holland. So Carthage, did you take a shower? Did you forget to brush your teeth? What is it that you did to aggravate your neighbors? I'm not sure, but it's coming home to roost here in fall of 1901.
Saren, what is standing out to you about 1901?
Yeah, usually you might be surprised to see such a strong play from a first-time virtual player such as Evan, but it's interesting to note that Evan is a long time and quite a big name in extended deadline communities, where he plays under the name of Tortelloni, one of the best pastas. So Tortelloni has been playing for like quite a while in like various Nexus leagues and tournaments, and like might have encountered either Karthik or Nicola in those communities in the past. I'm not sure if he has, but either way, like he's not a rookie to diplomacy, and like has no doubt experience with like quite aggressive, strong openings like this.
I'm not sure the last time I saw a French position. I mean, I've seen it before, but it has been a while since I saw France have Ruhr and take Belgium with the army. I mean, that's quite a strong attack on the Germans.
I love it, and I love seeing players from different backgrounds coming in and playing, and especially when there's some early success. Always fun to see. One of the challenges making the transition from extended deadline to either virtual face-to-face or face-to-face is just dealing with the time limits. I remember my first game with the Weasels. I played primarily extended deadline, and I just felt dizzy. It was moving so fast. And it once you get into a rhythm, it gets a lot easier. And now that's my preferred way to play. But it's always fun to watch, and I'm curious to watch Evan as the unit count goes up. How will they adjust to the timeline? All right, winter of 1901. We've got a build of a fleet in Marseille, Army Paris. Everything else is fairly standard. We've got the army in St. Pete. We'll go to you, Saren. What is standing out to you with these adjustments?
Well, certainly Nicola and Evan appear to be entirely on board with each other and on board with the EF. Like, these are basically the builds that like you'd ask for each other, like if you absolutely trusted each other in an EF. So it will be we'll see whether Karthik manages to get out of this situation. Like, he's been in worse and survived. So if anyone could do it, you'd be looking to see if that that would happen. But with Liam also like putting that army in St. Pete and Nicola and Evan being like as in sync as they are, like this would be like a very challenging situation to get out of in the German position. It's interesting that Chris Allenbaugh moved down from Venice to Apulia to follow the convoy into Tunis. That's very generous towards Austria and not something you see that often. So we'll see if it pays off for him, because Peter has preempted any Lepanto by moving out into Aegean in the fall of 01. So let's see where that goes.
Really like that play. Also something, thank you to Dip Chat for letting us know Karthik was a late ad and joined halfway through fall of 01. So let's keep that in mind when we're watching this scenario. Spring of 02. Thank you. Let's see, Saren, why don't you lead us through it?
Yep. So whether Karthik joined in spring or fall 01, whatever he is saying now is not enough to get either Nicola or Evan to stop this advance. And we see, like, again, like perfect cohesion between France and England as Evan supports that convoy down into Holland. And Liam appears to be totally on board with this as well. Like, often you'd expect like a Russia to kind of play like a counterbalancing force in the north and not want like the dominant alliance to move too quickly and do something to balance that out. But no, Liam appears to be also on board with this EF and like is doing everything in his power pretty much to aid Nicola in this. So Karthik is alone with three neighbors attacking him, basically. However, everything's not going so well for Liam because in the south, Farron and Peter have united against him. Now, like, this is like a terrifying alliance to face again. Like, if I were Russia and I had like Farron and Peter in Austria and Turkey and they were doing this, I would be like, I'd be looking for a way just to survive the game and like counting myself as very lucky for it. So not the best position for Liam to be in.
David, you're a fan of the Astro-Turk alliance, I believe. What is it that you see or what kind of potential do you see for that alliance in this setup?
This is an example of why AT works well, because it is easy to destroy your enemies quickly. They can't help each other. Russia and Italy can't help each other very well, particularly if the Italian guys in Apulia. So there's not much help really, and usually they don't know to help each other. So if you can get the jump on either Russia or Italy, and they're getting the jump on Russia here pretty strongly, then you can easily destroy your enemies. Of course, it is a tenuous alliance. There's a lot of potential instability in it because Turkey's in the corner and Austria's in the middle. But as long as you can work out that with negotiation, it can be a very powerful alliance for either party.
All right, Saren, what are we seeing in fall of 02?
Yep. So Chris appears to have been possibly talked by Farron and Peter, or possibly just decided to take the initiative and go after Evan. Either way, he is moving everything west. I don't know about this Tunis to North Africa move, which seems like that's the kind of move you make to preempt Mao potentially moving into North Africa. So like if you have some reason to think that Evan was gonna make that attack, I thought. I don't know, maybe like it's possible he had a good reason to believe that, but like if so, it doesn't pay off, which kind of just leaves the army now stranded in North Africa, and it's going to be quite tough to get that off and into like a useful position anytime soon. So this could possibly be like a mistake, like moving west while there's like a very strong AT, which like is making good progress against Liam and like might turn to you next. So let's keep a watch out for that and see where like this goes with Chris. If there's like any mistrust between like Farron and Peter, it's not showing in their moves, with like everything still like moving fully against Liam. Now like Farron and Peter have like a very long history of playing with each other, including on some like extremely consequential high caliber like top boards. So like absolutely like this is not going to be like this is not going to be a situation of them being like, oh yeah, but like it's an AT, but like how do I trust you, you're Turkey? Like no, they're going to have talked past all of this, and like this will be whatever they're saying to each other, it will be very much like tailored to the specific situation and the players they're around.
Yeah, and it looks like we've got some movement on the west as well. What's going on over there? I'm trying to make some sense of it.
I mean, it just looks like Nicola Evan are continuing to roll with Nikola having cut a deal with Liam to allow him Norway this year. That's something very savvy because now Nikola, Nikola can take Scandinavia whenever he wants. That's basically like a +3 in the bag for him. And like at the same time, like he leaves Liam that build to hold back the AT. So
that makes sense. All right. David, anything stand out on these adjustments?
Right before you did the reveal, I was going to say, I wonder if England is going to go ahead and build that army and pump another army into Europe, and he is, as opposed to building the fleet and, for defensive purposes or for rearranging the situation with Russia. So I guess Carthage is a dot farm for the English, at least in the short term. I think the Italian move against the French is the strategic decision in 1902 that is, going to possibly decide how this game goes here in the mid game. Because you don't really have the power to continue it. I mean, as Saren said, the army in North Africa doesn't do you a whole lot of good. So perhaps Italy just thought it was being preemptive, that Russia was coming after, that France was coming after them anyway. But I would be a little more, maybe circumspect about that. And sometimes the Italians just don't have a choice of what to do. If there's an AT going after Russia and you don't feel like you're strong enough to attack the Austrians, what do you do? Maybe you do this. But I just think it's going to be an interesting decision, given how strong the EF is and how, weak their German target is. We'll have to see if Italy's decision pans out. In the East, you've still got Anglo-Russian cooperation going on in Scandinavia in the northern part. So again, I think very savvy, as Saren said, on behalf of Nikolai, realizing that the AT needs to be counterbalanced.
Yeah, I'm going to be watching to see what the AT does with Italy once they've got their Russian dots. Because with the strength of the EF, are they going to risk taking that, or are they going to have to support Italy to hold that line?
Yeah. That's going to depend on the tactical situation by the time that happens.
Yeah.
That's not a bad move to take Lyon there as the Italians trying to defend against the French coming. The AT really, well, I guess they did take Warsaw, so that's exactly what they were trying to do this turn. Otherwise, any major surprises here? I guess the attack on Kiel did not work because of Baltic, right? This was the time that the ER friendship ended.
Yeah,
if I'm reading that correctly.
Saren, what's your take?
Yeah, so Liam has now decided that he's no longer gonna do everything for Nikolai in the north, and is now gonna turn around and support what's left of Carthage. We have McAllis here in the chat saying that looks like Liam is out of friends, which is basically true because Liam, with this latest move, has one friend in Carthage who's about to be dead. So not that useful of a friend if he's not going to be around for much longer. So I would be surprised if Liam survives the game after this.
Yeah, here's the quote for 1903. What kind of friend is Carthage Conniff?
All right. Winner of 03. Only adjustments are the disband from Russia and the build from Austria. We'll just push through into the spring of 04. Saren.
So Kiel and Munich immediately off the board. Carthage doesn't even bother retreating Munich to Bohemia. It looks like he's just, conceding this game, which fair enough. Chris in the south of France, gets into Marseille, but it looks like that unit might now be trapped there in the fall and like be blown up because Evan is gonna have like a guarantee to retake it. So maybe not ideal, as Farron and Peter are now moving all of their units west and very likely coming straight for Evan, because Farron has Venice guaranteed. There is no way that Evan can stop that, and Peter has a convoy into Apulia, which is also guaranteed and cannot be stopped. So it looks like a very natural set of moves for them to continue this campaign in the fall. Farron and Peter successfully got that jump on Chris, and now they can take advantage of that if they want. And that's exactly what they do. Peter convoying into Apulia, Farron seizing Venice. I wonder if this, maybe not. Like I was gonna say, like it might leave Peter like a little bit open and potentially leave an opportunity there for Farron to exploit. But so far it looks like they have like everything together quite nicely, and like Peter does get that build from Sev, so he can easily put something there to block up his homeland if needed. In the north, everything is going like swimmingly for Nicola. Like this is just, I mean, this kind of progress is like you go onto a board as England, and this is like basically everything that you could have asked for right from the start. Nicola easily takes Sweden and Norway and Kiel. Like that's 3 builds for him this year, and with France like finishing off like the Italian invasion and fully committed south. Like I mean, you couldn't ask for anything better as England.
Everything is coming up Taille in this game, and it's almost as if we've seen him have good results in the past. Have we? Have we seen him do well in the past? I don't remember.
Just about every time we've seen Nicola play.
Wait, that fella's coming into the show tonight, isn't he?
No.
Nicola Sahuge. We got a different Nicola coming in. All right.
Yeah. So hopefully we'll keep our fingers crossed on that one. Winter of 04. David, what are you expecting for adjustments here?
I'm expecting the English to build all 3 of their units. They might not. They might wait to try to make sure Evan doesn't get jumpy. But because this would be a time you could wave, but I don't know that Nicola's going to do that, and I hope he doesn't. And waving is something that really ought to be done very sparingly, in my opinion. On the Austria-Turkish side, I really do think they are committed to this AT. I think we're going to see a Turkish fleet and an Austrian army. Well, clearly we're going to see an Austrian army, but I think we're going to see a Turkish fleet. Yeah.
All right. And in spring of 1905, David.
Wow. AT continues to roll. This is really what you want to see. You know, that's the only fly in the Taille ointment, is not just the fact that you know, once you get England get to this position, how fast can you build? Can you grow from this position, which can be a little slow. The other fly in the ointment is this AT really knows what it's doing, and it seems to be doing it well.
Yeah, you've got 2 of the world's best players coordinating in lockstep. They are making many of the right choices here. And on that note, I forgot to do this a moment ago. Let's go ahead and play Who Do You Like? David, we'll start with you. You got to pick one. I'm not going to let you pick. There could be a split, but let's say somebody's going to top. Who do you like?
I still like Nicola's position probably the best, because the AT, as well oiled as a machine as it might be, is mostly going to be holding the French down, not holding the English down. So in terms of who's going to end this game when the time is called, or who's going to end up on top when the time is called, I'd say Nicola has the best chance. Honestly, any of the 4 has some chance. Don't get me wrong. But I think if you were asking for me to bet on one, it would be Nicola.
And Saren.
I'd want to be Nicola for the same reasons that David has said.
Okay. Well, for the purpose of picking someone different, I'm going to say Peter, because with that position in Turkey and this being a timed game, there's a chance you could make a end of game surge to take that last dot that you need to put you over the top.
Yeah, that's certainly a possibility.
But this is a good example of one of the theories that I do subscribe to. It's been around a long time. That's the witches. We do see both the English and the Turkish doing well, and there's strong correlation throughout almost every single meta as long as this game has been played between those two powers. Fall of 1905, David.
Is that Sweden convoyed to Berlin?
Yes, it is.
Sweden convoyed to Berlin. Okay, Liam, that's something you can do. The Austrians moving back some. I guess they were defending against the Russians taking Warsaw. Vienna to Budapest. I guess that's just to try to keep Peter honest. Otherwise, we see the Austrians taking Venice and the positions otherwise sort of firming up, everywhere else.
That move to Berlin is not insignificant, especially if that's telling us Liam may have thrown, is more upset at the AT than at Nikola. That's how I'm reading it. So I wonder if they'll keep one of those units around to keep that Baltic fleet, because that could be really powerful. I don't know. Saren, what do you think?
You're right. Mikarlis could be right. Maybe they're looking for an in-game position here. I don't know.
It's true.
I mean, if you're working for England, Baltic's the last unit you'd want to keep, right? I don't know. Like I can't claim to know how Liam thinks, and he's already kind of flipped several times this game, so I have no idea what he's going to keep.
You know what, Saren, you're going to figure him out when you meet him face to face in Cascadia in 2 weeks.
All right, winter of 1905, we've got a disband of Livonia, and we've got, Chris is still alive, hanging on to the all-important Tunis. We've got an army in Marseille, army in Eddie. Saren, any of this stand out to you?
Looks like this is headed to a line. I mean, it's pretty firmed up here. Just got to finish off Liam, which looks like what they're doing here.
Yeah. All right, I'm just going to keep moving a little bit forward. If you notice anything that looks out of the norm, let me know. Continuing to set up that line.
Greece taking Bulgaria, I assume that's...
Trade for Rome.
Yeah, I was going to say, I assume that's part of the deal.
Winter of 06.
There's got to be a draw proposal here.
Yep, there it is. So, Saren, you called it. So I assume you feel like this is the right result for this game?
Yeah, I think so. The only reason you veto is if you think that the other alliance can break sufficiently for you to push past and get things, right? Obviously Nikola is never going to veto, and I assume Evan is all right in this scenario with Nikola topping. Otherwise he wouldn't have played the way he did earlier in the game so much. So Evan probably doesn't veto there. Farron, it would be really risky to veto on the off chance you could somehow stir up something in the West, because then you've got Peter behind you, and I think it's just not worth it.
It's interesting to contrast this game with the last one. This game sure did resolve a lot faster on both sides of the map in sort of an old school way. This would have been a way that we would have played this game in 1992 or something, where you go and destroy your enemy on your side of the map. And then the question becomes, as between the four remaining players, is anybody going to stab their original alliance? And in an untime limited game, like we would have been playing in 1992, the answer might have been yes, if we thought we could have some shot at doing better. In a time limited game, you wonder if the stab, considering that everybody had pretty good position, both offensively and defensively in this game, AT had their stuff figured out, for example. I just don't think the stab would have had enough time to get anything more significant. That's probably why the game ended, probably why the players decided not to do it.
All right. Well, we are going to allow Saren to take a break. And actually, Saren, I think this is it for you tonight. So thank you for joining us. I know it's extremely late for you. Thanks for staying up. Always appreciate having you on. So we'll say farewell to Saren and Adam. Welcome, Adam, back. We are running a little behind a schedule, so we're going to go through this next game and try and be disciplined on our timing. But let's go ahead and get right to our final VDL game of the early rounds. And here we see VDL game 101, Austria, Jason Massbaum, England, Marcus Zylstra, France, Jason Bennett, Germany, Neil Lyons, Italy, Liam Stokes, Russia, Nicola Taye, and Turkey, Michalis Kamaridis. Another loaded board. Definitely these games have entertained both from a gameplay perspective and a player perspective. Let's see what happens in this one to see if we continue with it. Adam, I'm going to go ahead and have you take 1901 and let's get to it.
Okay, I'll try unmuting this time. So we don't see any action in the English Channel, but we do see a supported move to Burgundy by the French. Otherwise, we see a lot of pretty typical stuff: bounces in the Black Sea, bounce in Galicia, the Italian opening the armies to Apulia and Tyrolia. That's definitely a classic play by the Italians. Really nice opening, gives the Italians lots to talk about and lots of people to talk to in the come the fall negotiation. So kudos to Liam for going to Tyrolia. All right, in the fall, we see the balance between the English and the French in Belgium, while the Germans cover Munich. We see the English and the Russians take Norway and Sweden, respectively. No action in the Black Sea as the Turks move to get their fleet out of Ankara. But perhaps most interestingly, we do see the Italians take Trieste, presumably with the blessing of the Austrians, since they do forego Tunis instead going to the Aegean Sea. This suggests, either Jason and Liam were on side from the beginning, or they sniffed out the potential for an RT on this board to get that unit into Aegean, which is always a very strong momentum move for the AI.
And David, I'll go to you here. What are you expecting to see for adjustments, and what's your just overall take of what we've seen this year?
Well, we've got AI versus RT, a story that we've never heard told before. So obviously I expect there to be a fleet in Smyrna for obvious reasons. As is often true in 1901, a question is with the Russians, what do you build in St. Pete? We've seen an army build. We've seen a wave already tonight. Are we going to see the fleet build, the more dramatic or aggressive build? I sort of doubt it, but I always enjoy seeing that. And then, if we've got the fleet North Sea, which bounced the French in Belgium, in Belgium, does that mean we're getting ready to have some anti-French build from the English and vice versa?
It's vice versa.
Yeah, or at least they're trying to keep each other honest there.
Yeah, two fleet builds by France is usually more anti-English than anti-Italian, especially when one of those fleets is in Portugal.
Yes, agreed.
All right, spring of 1902. David.
And England goes ahead and supports himself to the English Channel, knowing that this is there's trouble a-brewing. So he wants to go ahead and take the English Channel. The German move is interesting, not going to Ruhr, staying put, not moving from Berlin. The fleet moved into Helgoland makes perfect sense, but, not moving the armies at all. I guess maybe that is just a way to not scare the French if you're really trying to establish the FG alliance. I didn't hear this said out loud. The fleet North Coast build was in fact made, and here we go. This is what you do with it. You go to Norway. In the East, It looks like, yeah, Bulgaria has already fallen, which you had to do if you were going to try to take the Italians out of the Aegean. The fleet to the Black Sea is the interesting question. I guess, is he there to help or is he there to hurt? I would guess he's there to help, but we will see soon enough.
One thing I'll point out that I think is really interesting, is, as David pointed out, when you build a fleet, St. Pete North Coast, you want to go to Norway as Nicola did. But what you usually end up with is that fleet retreating, and if it retreats to the Barents, you're often left with this guess over how to hold Norway or defend St. Petersburg. What happened here was different because the English actually vacated Norway to go into the Skagerrak, and if Nicola had any hand in that happening, that's just a great play on his part.
Or, of course, it also might have just been that there's a Anglo-German conflict.
Right. It could have been with the blessing of England that he did that.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. Is that okay? Never mind. So the Germans holding with support in Denmark. All right. The English have flanked the French have flanked the English, which was going to happen here, considering that couldn't be stopped. So I guess just sort of typical FG stuff with the Russians throwing their lot in with the FG, I believe, is what that all means by moving the fleet to Norwegian like that. In the east, the Italian move to Serbia and the Italian move to Greece is probably not with consent of Jason Massbaum. And speaking for all of us who have ever played with Jason, I'm so sorry to see this happen to you, man, because you are lovable in every way. And you did not keep Bulgaria, and you lost some other stuff, and that's really sad.
The Italian no less gets support from Russia into Serbia and from Turkey into Greece. That was a lot of love to get Liam to make those moves.
Yeah, and all kidding aside, sometimes Austria really does just get dogpiled by the three neighbors. That's what happens. And the question becomes, which of those three is going to be the odd person out when Austria is gone?
I think it's fascinating to see Liam at 6 centers, and Tunis is not yet owned.
Hey, this game's about position.
Absolutely.
All right, spring of 03, Adam.
Yeah. So, did the Russians just build a army in St. Petersburg? Was that
Yes,
what
they did.
Not a fleet. That's fascinating to see them build an army and not another fleet up there. Interesting to see what Nicola has in mind with that. So the French walk into Liverpool, which is completely undefended, and the Russians opt to go into the North Atlantic rather than taking a shot at Edinburgh, which would have worked, but instead. Really, England is in a bad way right now, and that is too bad for Marcus. Or I'm reading that it may be somebody else, and Marcus coming in later as a replacement. But what's actually really interesting is to see that the Germans and the French now seem to be fighting as well. With the French going up to Burgundy, the Germans really getting support from the English actually into Belgium. So. The dynamic over there suggests a lot of chaos and a definite opportunity for the Russians to make some play in the north. In the south, I'm not quite sure what Mikarlis has in mind here. Probably trying to avoid the fleet in Khan getting destroyed is probably why he's moving like that. Though he could have just supported Khan to hold here, but I'm suspecting these moves he had something in mind to avoid getting a unit piffed.
Yeah.
Okay. This is really, nice play by Liam. He actually is now, he's now putting himself really totally in the driver's seat here. Turkey is really pretty much on their last legs fighting with the Russians. And now he's got Jason Massbaum back on side by supporting Jason into Romania, allowing him to take Bulgaria. It seems like everybody wants to work with Liam here in the east, and so he's building as a result of it. He still doesn't take Tunis, but instead goes into the Gulf of Leon and Piedmont and seems to be wanting to take advantage of the chaos in the west. So we'll see how that works for him. Is this good position, David, or is this spreading oneself too thin too early?
I think it's good. You mean on Liam's part?
Yeah.
I think it's good positioning. I really do. I
What we seems
consider
David.
his building.
Sorry, David, you froze for a second.
Okay. Well, I was probably just frozen by Liam's really good moves. I was mesmerized by the fact that I think he's put himself in good position. It's a little bit risky, of course, but you got to take some risks as the Italian sometimes because your offensive options are sometimes limited. So you got to take some risk. I think this is one probably worth taking.
If the goal is the Italians is to have a finger in every pie on the board, Liam is certainly succeeding in that regard.
Yeah, and I think that's a play style we've seen Liam do well with. So I like.
Maybe not this time though, because Jason says, "All right, I'm going to take my stuff back now."
Yeah.
Kudos to Jason Massbaum here, huh?
Do I really have to say that? All right, fine. Kudos to Jason Massbaum.
It's like the winner of the Calumet Cup last season knows how to play this game a little bit.
Liam decides perhaps that it might be time to take Tunis, though.
He'll probably.
I don't know. He's not hadn't been there in the fall yet.
Yeah, he might go to Western Med yet.
But in the West, I mean, I was a little bit sort of questioning what Nikolai's involvement in the West was. He went to the North Atlantic, then came back. Hasn't really made much of a mark in the West yet, has he?
Yeah, I mean, this is why I was questioning the decision to build an army in St. Pete rather than a fleet. I think if you wanted the army, you probably wanted it in Moscow. If you wanted more play in the north, having a third fleet up there would be really powerful. Obviously, risky because it splits your units pretty harshly in that situation.
Yeah, that's right. He does finally take Edinburgh, does Nikolai. Yes, with support of the Germans.
Mm.
Germans also go into Burgundy and take Belgium. This may not be an FG alliance anymore. What do you guys think?
I don't think it's been an FG alliance for a year or so. I mean, they lined up over there and they were fighting over Belgium earlier on.
Yeah.
So I think that they've been sort of jockeying back and forth, and it's a lot of chaos, I think, in this game, right? And I think the one who's benefiting the most from it is probably Nicolas Tully, but maybe Germany to some extent.
McCarless is building, right?
Yeah, he sure is. Of course, he's building with a Russian army in Armenia, but yes.
Yeah, all of that interesting chaos, and Jason's building, McCarless is building. All of that's really just Nicolas Taillet is improving. Is really what all that means, I think.
Another fun, chaotic game.
We got Italy in the Black Sea, which is great, and no surrounding units. We'll see if he keeps it, though. He's going to be disbanding.
All right, well, we'll pause here and let's learn about Paris Lees. Paris is a British trans woman journalist and activist. She's the first trans person to be a columnist at Vogue. She's an advocate for positive trans people portrayal in British TV. So again, for those of you just joining us, all of our games this month are named after LGBTQ activists. And for this one, thank you to Paris Lees. And let's go ahead and do Who Do You Like? Adam, we'll start with you.
It's impossible not to like Russia in this position. I think there's just been so much chaos elsewhere on the board, and the chaos has just sown opportunity after opportunity, and Nikolai has done a fair job of taking advantage of it.
I'm trying to come up with a counter argument that here is a candidate who's going to beat Nikolai out for the board top, and it could happen, but not based on the position we're looking at right now. Yeah. I mean, the only other argument you could really make maybe would be Neil. If somehow he got a jump on the Russians, I just don't see him doing that.
Can we just pick the field? Will the field have more centers than Nicola?
If I'm Neil in this position, I feel like I want to build a fleet, but I also kind of want to build an army. So I'm expecting a fleet, but I don't know. This is a pretty tough call.
I think Neil will build an army, and I think that is a flexibility mistake. But I think he will build an army.
Okay,
build a fleet, good. I actually think the fleet's a lot better build.
I like the fleet as well.
And that's why both of y'all are better at this game. I would have done the army, I think. All right, spring of 05, Adam.
I don't know that I would have gone to Baltic Sea with the fleet, though. But that is what Neil has decided to do, and it looks like that he is at least still working with the English. In fact, putting the English back in Edinburgh, which is quite interesting. Nicola maybe is sniffing some of this out because he actually walked into the North Sea and moved the fleet back to Sweden. So makes you wonder that whether some of this was seen on his part. But there does look to now be a concerted anti-Russian movement on this board, which you can see by Jason going to Galicia. He's no longer attacking the Italians. The Turks, in fact, are working with the Italians together, and they're pushing Nicola back. The Italians and the French even seem to have figured something out with Italy convoying out of Spain, going back to Tuscany. So this really looks like a very concerted anti-Russian effort. Basically, the board kind of coming up with what I just said, like looking at it and saying what I said. Wow, I can't see anybody topping this board against Russia. Well, let's all get together and maybe see something about that. And they do.
This is really some good coordination by people who really know what they're doing. And I have to say, when I was picking earlier Russia, my point was I didn't know which of the other people I could really pick individually and say they had a better chance of topping the board. This was always a possibility that there would be, some coordinated move against Russia. I still don't know who that benefits in terms of who's going to top the board. Maybe the French. We'll see.
I do wonder in this position, if you're Germany and you're going to go to the Baltic, why not bounce Sweden as well? Why hold?
The hold didn't make sense to me. Well, and then he comes back. So Neil changed his position here, and it may just be that Nicola talked him out of that because of what was happening to Nicola in the south. Look, I'm getting attacked by all these people.
Yeah, so the net effect of this is actually Mikarlis is going to build. So now Turkey's up to 4, and in that corner position is Turkey. That's actually a good place to be. And I'm thinking that Russia's going to have a pull, or I don't know if Bulgaria got destroyed. So if they have a pull and you can get that army in Armenia out of your way, you actually may have some game now.
Yeah, this is really quite a turnaround, and I have to admit I wasn't expecting the turnaround to be that fast. Yeah, I'm not saying that Nicola's position is bad or anything. It just is no longer quite as dominating.
Winter of 05, we've got Mikarlis building fleet in Cannes and Jason Bennett building fleet in Brest. We've got a disband of Black Sea from Liam. All of that seems to make sense to me. Anything this is telling us?
Jason really hasn't had choices that he could make because Italy attacked him. Now he's got a situation where he could start making some choices again if he wanted to.
All right, David.
And then Italy attacks him anyway. Wow.
Okay, so this a note here. I think this is important. So this is when Marcus took over.
Okay.
David, you want to call this one?
Oh, sorry, I forgot it was my turn. Well, the French did go ahead and decide I'm going to send some units north here now that I no longer have to use everything to fight off the French. I'm sorry, the Italians. And then the Italians jump into the Western Med anyway. Again, sort of the late breaking AstroTurk here, taking the Romania center away from the Russians. It's just sort of fascinating. The Russians have to retreat to Syria. Their offensive potential against Mikarlis has obviously diminished. Really, again, it's not that Nicola's position is bad. It's just no longer as dominating as it was. And I think the real questions in my head are now, what is Germany going to do and what is France going to do if they can, spare units against the Italians coming back at them again?
I'm really puzzled by Mastbaum's decision to tap Munich here. If anything, if I'm Mastbaum and I'm attacking Nikola, I'm probably trying to convince the Germans to send something over into Silesia, to help out to the cause. Now Neil has gone back and forth, right? He was in the Baltic Sea and all of that kind of thing, so he hasn't exactly proven to be reliable to that cause. But I'm not sure I want to be necessarily encouraging the Germans to be defending against my one unit tapping on Munich rather than doing something that's more helpful to me, whether that's, tussling with France or sending a unit east.
Have Russia and Germany been working together?
Well, they did before.
Yeah, they did in fall of 2005. So I'm wondering if that was more of an anti-Russian move.
I think it probably was. It also might have been, what else do I do if I'm Jason Mastbaum in Tyrolia?
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you do orders because you can't figure out what a good alternative would be.
Yeah, maybe you go to Bohemia.
Maybe.
Okay. We do
Certainly, you might want to go to Trieste too. I guess if you're worried about something, that's an interesting move.
Yeah.
But the French do decide they were trying to do something more creative in terms of having to, some intervention in the north. They just can't afford to do it because Liam attacked them again.
Yeah.
So now they're back in North Africa, moving everything down to the south. That's good news for Germany and or Russia.
Yeah, the question is, what does Germany do now, right? They've got to fight somebody who they're next to, which is going to be either the French, who they just put in Munich, or it's going to be the Russians, who they haven't really shown a lot of interest in fighting. So
it's got to be France. I mean, you just got attacked by France. It's probably not going to be Russia.
Germany didn't get it. It looks like Germany's supporting the French into Munich. Oh, who are they supporting?
Am I missing something there?
What is Ruhr doing? What is Ruhr actually doing? It looked like he was supporting the French in.
Yeah, they are.
He supported the French into Munich?
Yeah.
I thought the Austrians were supporting them into Munich.
They both did. He wants them
to.
Yeah.
All right. Munich. Well, that is a fascinating
I mean, I can see the rationale for Germany to do this here. They're getting a build so they don't have a pull on the board, and push that unit into Bohemia or something. Could be useful against the other side of the board. So it gets it out of your hair. You're no longer worrying what it's going to do. You just get it behind the line. So I don't necessarily disagree with it, but you've got to make some decision to be going somewhere, and it's just not clear where that is right now.
It would be Russia, right?
Well, and the Russians just made some moves that are pro-German in terms of getting out of Sweden and so forth.
Yeah, is it the Russians, or is it they try to direct them against Austria so you get down to Tyrolia and Galicia and that kind of thing while you're working?
I have to say, I'm just going to pause right here and say this is a well-played game. There are people really making interesting decisions based on new information, the kind of thing that you want to do when you're playing diplomacy. Just don't play on autopilot.
But let's find some way to criticize Jason Mastbaum if we can.
I for one will not, because I've been impressed with Jason's ability to.
Jason was at 2, and he's building again. So I'm trying to figure out a way to criticize Mastbaum, but I can't do it right this second.
And I don't have any information on this, but I just get the sense there's probably some diplomatic influence going on there as well. So. Well played, regardless of the outcome. This has been impressive play there.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I think for some reason Germany decided that having a French army in Munich was better than building a German army in Munich himself. So, we'll see how that works out. But what is actually happening? Oh, the Austro-Turk piffs the Russian fleet in Sev. That's pretty meaningful right here. And the Italians and the French continue to tussle, but it looks like in this case the French are going to take Tunis and they're going to hold it.
Just stepping back again to make a broader point, this is exactly why you're down to 2 as the Austrians, or you're down to whatever it was, 2 or 3. I guess it was 2 for the Turks. Do you give up or do you keep playing? You keep playing. Because look at how those guys have been able to turn their positions around. I'm not saying they're in spectacular position to top this board, but they're obviously have turned things around in a way that I find impressive.
Would you bet against Massbaum topping this board right now? I think he's got as good a shot as anyone.
I'm going to go with no, just because it's Jason.
Find a way to not.
But the point you're making is not a terrible point.
Huh.
What do you
Although
see?
there sure does seem to be a lot of cooperation in the West, doesn't there?
Yeah.
Cooperation and holding otherwise.
Yeah.
That's not good if Jason or McCarless is trying to top the board.
No, it looks like Germany really doesn't want to make a move on anyone right here, other than maybe Austria, which is a little awkward. The move to Gal is a little bit off. Feels a little awkward there, especially with the French supporting them to Bohemia, which I think you probably would have preferred to stand off the Austrians in Bohemia than sort of swap places there and get your unit stranded in Gal with nothing around it. But they do pick up a build in Liverpool, which I guess will be helpful to them. And I guess I have to foresee that they're going to put an army down.
Yeah, they have to build an army now.
Yeah. The two French builds is fascinating. Another French fleet, which I guess makes sense.
Nikolai. Oh, that's
Whoa! I was not expecting that. I would not have gone.
What?
Wow.
Whoa.
If you were going to have two people share the top, it would make sense for these two because they were working together so well there towards the end.
Wow.
Well,
But it does seem a little premature. Now, maybe they had technical issues also like the other game did, and they had to end early. I don't know. Although 1908 is 1907 is too early for that to have been the reason. Gosh.
fascinating.
Before we saw the game over, I was going to say, or was in the middle of saying, gosh, Nikolai's position sure has changed a lot. It's still not terrible, but is not likely to have a chance at topping the board with the strong AT, stopping them. And boy, they didn't. The shared board top's not a gigantic score. Jason saying in the comments that it was diplomatically locked.
It feels like there's a lot of growth opportunities for the Germans from this position, right? I mean, they can probably convoy over into Livonia. If they're continuing to work with the French and the French are satisfied sending their fleets south, there's probably some opportunities for them to make some gains in Russia. Maybe you throw France, London to keep them happy. And, at least you can get a little bit bigger, whether you're going to get a solo top or just get you in France a little bit bigger, 9 center, 10 center top instead of a 7-7. I think there's probably play there if you want to grind it out for another few turns.
Interesting.
Well, it was definitely a game on theme for tonight. For those who missed my wonderful intro at the start of the game, I was muted or the broadcast. But the theme tonight is Stranger Things. And this game was strange for this league, entertaining for all of us, though. Thank you to the players again. And on to the next Stranger Thing for the North America, at least. Tonight we are featuring the French language virtual league, and we have joining us on the stream right now, Nicolas Sahuguet. Nicolas, welcome.
Thank you, Ryan.
We are going to go ahead and give Adam and David a really brief break, just a couple minutes, while we have Nicola kind of talk us through the league, the structure, and help us kind of prepare for what we're about to see. So then you can just join us back in 2 or 3 minutes and we'll go on air next. Looks like David, you will have the next broadcast. So Adam, you'll have a brief break. So, Nicola, thank you for joining us. Tonight, we have picked 3 games from the French Diplomacy League. I'm really excited about this. We covered these games a couple times last year, and I remember the first time we covered them, I just felt like the games were wild, and I loved every moment of it. I know personally, I've been playing this game almost 30 years, or over 30 years rather. And I remember when I discovered some of the writings from the French language hobby that were doing wild things at the time, for at least in North America, nobody had heard of. For example, something like loaning Trieste to Italy. Like, I had never heard of that. I thought it was fascinating. So anytime I got the chance to read from that hobby, I was devouring that. And now we get the chance to watch it. So it's always a treat for me. Can you kind of talk about the structure of the league a little bit and how it's scored and things like that?
So this is the second edition of the Francophone League. So Christophe Borja and Leila Saarlainen are the 2 main organizers this year. And so they're organizing games whenever people are willing to play. So they have lots of dates, and they are trying to on the Discord to see if there are enough people who are willing to play. And whenever there are enough players, they organize a game. And also they decided that the tournament, the Francophone Virtual Face-to-Face Championship, the games played there would count for the league if you had also played 2 games outside this tournament. So you don't need to play so many games in the league to have a chance to fight for the top board. But you need to play games outside of this tournament. So all the games are 1907 games. So that's the tradition in France. So they are fairly quick and fast. So they are pretty social players. It never takes more than 4 hours. So that's practical. It's called, so the scoring system is Namur Cediplo. So the Cediplo system is, is kind of well known. It's all the points add up to 100 points. And it's basically 1 point per center, 1 point for each player for participating. And then there are bonuses. So if you top the board, you have 38 points. If you are second, you have 14 points. If you are third, you have 7 points. And the logic is that shared second can never score more than the first place. No, second place can never score more than a shared top board. That's the logic of the 38 and 14. And then the scores of the league, they are added up, and then they are divided by the number of games you played plus 3 or something like that. So the more you play, the better chances you have, but also your score is divided. So just playing a lot is not enough to score a lot of points in that.
So you've got a little bit of risk in there as well. You have to have it rewards continued performance.
Exactly.
Awesome. Well, let's go ahead and take a look at our first game. Appropriately, this is the first game of the season. What can you tell us about the players and help set up a storyline here?
So there are quite a few well-known players. So Vincent Rollet, who is French but is living in Italy, won the league last year. So he won the top board. So he's a pretty big name. And I think people have seen him play also in VDC. Steve Personeni is also a pretty well-known player. He won the French Virtual Francophone Championship back in March. And then Brieux Thibault is also a quite well-known player. He won the French face-to-face championship, the last one that was played, I think, in 2020, and he's a very, very, very strong gunboat player. I think he has done some results in Nexus, and he's also dominating the French gunboat scene. And then some other names, Loïc Borja is the son of Christophe Borja, who is well known. He's organizing the EDC in Switzerland. Nicolas Constantin is another Swiss player, and Kevin Groba is also playing most of the league games. And Thierry Allais, I don't really know that name, so I think he's kind of a new addition.
Awesome. Well, I recognize several of these names from the Countdown show. These players have scored very well, so really glad to see them returning back. Let's get to the games right now. And here we go.
I think David is going to like this game.
All right.
I always like these games.
Okay, so Nicola, what we're doing, we're trying to keep these to about 1 minute per year. So we're moving through these very quickly. I'm going to have you take the odd years, and David will take the even years. And feel free to jump in and add commentary if you find something that's interesting, and we'll go from here. So, Nicola, take us away.
So as you will see some similitude with the game we saw before in the broadcast, where it's Farren and Peter playing an AT. So here it starts even faster with Austria moving to Romania, which is not something we see very often. In the West, very normal moves for now. So and Italy is also playing normal moves, so nothing special, just the move to Romania, which is very interesting.
David, how do you feel about that?
Is the German move to Holland a common move in the French language league? I mean, it used to be more common in the North American hobby than it is now, in which it is actually rare nowadays. What about in the French language hobby?
I would say it's not. I mean, it's mostly going to Denmark, but some players move to Holland, and it's not considered as strange as in the North American hobby, I would say.
Yeah, so in North America, if I see that, I'm immediately worried about a sea lion attack, a coordinated attack on England. Does that mean the same thing in this meta?
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I mean, I don't know Thierry Allet, so I think he's maybe a newer player. So he may be playing different strategies, and I wouldn't read too much from this.
Well, we have to remember, with a game that's going to end in 1907, getting a lot of centers in your region is as important a consideration as longer term strategic considerations, because what is a long term in a 1907 game?
Yeah, that's right. So in the fall, we see that the AT is already in action, with Turkey moving to the Black Sea and Armenia, Austria bouncing in Trieste and taking Greece. So they're already making progress. Italy, unfortunately, I don't know why, because he's an experienced player, messes up his convoy to Tunis, so that's not very good. And in the West, so France is getting 3 builds, and France is a very strong player, so that's very worrying. That should be very worrying for the rest of the board. And we see that an EF is starting also to take place, with England bouncing Germany out of Denmark. So that's the big issue with moving to Holland, is if you're not sure of what England is going to do, you might be in trouble.
Well, you move to Holland and then support yourself to Belgium, which apparently didn't work, or they didn't. Yeah. They misordered it. Maybe they misordered it.
No, I think he ordered. I don't know.
It doesn't make sense. He should have been able to take Belgium.
Yeah, I think he wanted to have maybe the help of the French, and so he supported the French there under the front.
Okay.
I don't know.
Yeah, well, now if you're going to do that, then the move to Holland is really not a very, very productive move. Yeah.
All right, David.
Well, you're right, Nicola. This is fast-acting AT action right here. I think that's what you meant earlier when you said I would like this. Taking out Sev like that, going into the Galicia very quickly. I know the Russians got into Romania, but that's a short-term problem. When is the last time I saw Serbia not taken in 1901, and nobody even moved there in 1901? It's interesting. In the West, it does look like the EF folks are sticking together there, right? Because the fleet build in Brest just goes to to Picardy instead of anywhere else. So obviously that's headed at least to help defend Belgium, or maybe to go to Belgium. They're not going to, however, they are not looking like they're going to make an immediate attack, otherwise. So we'll see how that goes. Yeah, there goes the Russian fleet in Romania being dead. Ooh, the Russians lose Warsaw there. Guess they had to do one or the other. So they decided to take Sevastopol back instead of covering Warsaw. Russians, is that the Russians taking Munich? It is the Russians taking Munich.
I love the scramble for dots here. Like, this is so atypical and exactly what I was hoping for in whenever we were covering these games. This is wild and it's aggressive and so much fun.
Gosh, Germany, that is a sad 1902.
Yep.
Of course, now that the question is what next
Mm-hmm.
for the EF. I mean, there's not much left of Germany to deal with. So,
all right, Nicola.
So the EF continues. So it looks like the other game we saw is AT against EF. The French send all their fleets to the Med, and England is moving their fleets, taking Kiel. And as often when there is a fight between EF and AT, is a bit who is going to get Italy and Russia on board, who is going to be the important thing, because that's basically going to be the difference between who is going to get 20 centers and who is going to get 16 centers. And so the board topper usually is going to get from that side of the board. And it seemed that Russia now is on board with England, and so that's already one ally on that side of the board. And it's not clear where Italy is going to fall, because it's been attacked by Austria, and France is also moving. So I think the way France is going to manage this relationship is going to be important to decide the outcome of the game.
I mean, it's fine to say that England and Russia are working together. Well, no, not anymore. Never mind. I was going to say it's fine to say they're working together, but that can't last long because Germany's basically dead. And then the English are going to have to, I don't know, attack the Russians, which they're doing.
Yeah, yes and no. I mean, they are supporting them into Berlin, and they are taking Sweden in exchange. So I think, they are kind of promising them maybe survival in Germany, or at least for a while. And then France is moving, but he's not trying to take Italian centers. So maybe he's going to also get an Italian ally there. And they keep moving. France is not taking centers, but they are moving into Burgundy. Very good position for now. But the AT is also making lots of progress, getting into Ukraine, into Romania. I mean, both alliances are moving extremely efficiently.
Yeah, and that's actually good to see in a time-limited game, because sometimes you do get a lot of back and forth that really hurts your ability to create anything at the end of the game. And then both of these alliances have given themselves options to create something at the end of this game.
Yeah, I wanted to pick a game where French players or Francophone players can be seen as alliance players, so that their reputation of grabby, steady players is not there. So.
Right. And as you do with the AT, you immediately go now to the north with your units and hope for the best. When you were saying earlier that maybe it's not England attacking Russia, I wanted to say, if I'm the Russians and the English go to the Baltic, I'm like, that's not what I wanted to see, and this is why. Let's see. Otherwise, the EFs appears to be sticking together here. This really is quite a set of alliance play situations.
Yep. And it continues.
Certainly does. And the Italians, let's see, the French are propping up the Italians. Is that what's happening?
Yeah, basically, they're cooperating with Italy, and I think that's a smart play, trying to get the other small two powers on, with you for as long as possible, and then they let you grab their stuff, because the better view of it than the other side. So I think that's what Russia did, and now I think we'll see that what Italy is doing now.
Mm-hmm.
And it's smart for the Italian also, because I think France needs those fleets, at least for now. All right, so winner of 1904. This game is over halfway done. Nicola, who do you like to top this board?
I know the results, so I'm not going
All right, and I'll just ask David.
But
That's such a good question. I don't like AT's chances of topping the board. I think it's going to be England or France, not just because of the Italian situation, but just because I think their position's better. So it has to pick one of either England or France. I can see arguments both ways, but I'm going to go with the English.
Yeah, that would be my pick also. It wouldn't shock me if anyone else tops, but England is who I think would have the easiest path.
I mean, the Turks don't have a zero chance of topping here.
Yeah. All right, let's keep this moving. Spring of 2005, Nicola.
So we see a pretty efficient play. England is convoying to Denmark, taking St. Petersburg with an army, improving their position almost everywhere. And France is still working with Italy, moving more and more pieces around. So maybe it's not going to last forever. And in the east, we see Turkey taking Moscow, taking Greece for now. It might be, arranged with Austria, who's taking Venice. But, strong move from Turkey. And, in 1907 games, the timing is super important. So you need to move not too early, otherwise people are going to not be happy with you, but not too late, because otherwise it's too late. So, and Vincent is a very good Cdiplo player, 1907 player. So he knows that even with Turkey, you need to make your move at some point in the game. Otherwise, it's going to be too late. And in the fall, we see that France finally takes Tunis. I think this unit was not really needed anymore. But, cuts Tyrolia so that Italy is getting Venice back. So I think it's very smart play. He gets 1 dot from Italy, but he's still friend with them. And then he takes Kiel and supports England into Munich. So I think it's also a pretty savvy move, because I think he keeps the alliance going, but it's much better to be in Kiel than having a unit in Munich surrounded by foreign powers.
Yeah, I'm really starting to like the French position more than I am the English one.
So for now, it's 9-9. So I think it's clear that, as David was saying, the West is dominating. I think they manage better the two small powers, and I think I also like the way Brieux is playing this game. He's really controlling the board really well, while maintaining his alliance with England.
So that move on Munich, do you think that was arranged perhaps, and that it was just sort of happenstance that the English army was killed?
Yeah, I'm not that sure.
Yeah, I'm not sure either.
It might be France making a move, or it might be arranged saying, you can take one of the others, Kiel or Holland. But he's moving to Belgium, he's moving to Burgundy. I think he's making sure that he'll be in position in 1907, because 1907 is the next year. So,
how was Piedmont ordered?
Supported Venice.
Yep.
Okay.
So he keeps, trying to work with Italy to slow the AT as much as he can, which I think is pretty good.
Convoy to Apulia.
Yep.
There is a
and
ton.
The French take Naples, I guess. I'm sorry.
No, I said there's a ton happening this turn.
French taking Naples is obviously important.
Yeah. I don't like this. So I praised Vincent before. I think that's the turn where I think it's the year before the last, and he's moving out of Ukraine. He's moving to Apulia, where there is nothing to be gained. I think that's maybe the turn where he's
maybe should have taken Serbia instead.
Yeah, he's a little bit soft. I think he could have taken Serbia and Greece and make a move. But
we were talking earlier in the broadcast about the counterbalancing the need to score better in this game and the need to have credibility as an ally in future games. Is that second consideration a thing in a French language league with 1907 games?
Yeah, I think the culture is that in 1907 there is no alliance anymore. Everybody is is going for the win, and it's admitted, and nobody is going to be unhappy if you try to win in 1907. That's really, there is a rush for the win, and you need to prepare it a little bit before. I mean, if you just, grab a dot from your ally, not to try to win the game, just to grab a dot and you kind of sabotage his chances to top, then it's not going to be very, very nice. But if you try to play for the win in the French hobby, usually nobody is going to hold a grudge. I mean, unless
that would have been a good argument for Vincent doing that in the fall move. Then go ahead and take Romania and Serbia.
Unless you make promises on your children's name or your on your father, or whatever. So then if you lie about it, then maybe. But if you just say, okay, I'm going for the win because that's the way the game is designed, nobody is going to be annoyed, and everybody is expecting it. So you play under these expectations.
You just say quel dommage and don't worry about it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the games are short, so it's not like you get stabbed after 8 hours of play. Here it's after 3 hours. Just say okay. Next.
All right, this will be the last turn, right, Nicolas?
Yes, and as we can see, Brieux is in total control. He did exactly what he needed. He took Naples. He took back kill, but he's giving it back, or he knows he cannot defend it, but he knows how to count to 10, I think, and that's enough to top this board.
Yeah.
So I think it's a very, very good illustration of the French or the Francophone style of play. You can have alliance or cooperation, but at the end, what you want is make sure that you're a little bit in a better position than your ally, so that in 1907 you can make the move you need to make to top the board. And if you don't, then maybe you grab as much as you can, or you just say, okay, I've worked well. We didn't make it. Let's get second place and let's move on.
Well, thanks, Nicolas. That one was fun. Exactly what I was hoping for. And let's do another one. Here we go. All right. So the next one we've got is game 3. Nicolas, why do we choose this particular game?
First, because of the players. So you will see, Christophe Borja is leading the league. Is going to do fairly well. It's an interesting game. He's going to also play a very interesting alliance with Leigh Saarlainen. And you will see the moves that are played as a kind of variation on a well-known opening strategy. And also I wanted to give a shout out to Christophe Borja, who is organizing the EDC in Switzerland in September. You mentioned it earlier. And also Leigh Saarlainen, who is not living in Nantes, France. I don't know why. Right now he's living in Thailand. And with Andrew Goff, he's trying to organize the WDC 2023 in Bangkok, Thailand. So I don't know if it's going to take place. We don't have the details. I know they are working on it, and that COVID was kind of a big setback. But so, and also, you see some of the interesting names. So I'll mention another person a bit later but it's an interesting group of players.
All right. Well, for this one, David, I'm going to give you a break, and we're going to add Adam back to the stream. Thanks, David. And Adam, I'm going to let you start off calling the games 1901, and Nicola, you'll take the even years. Adam, you'll have the odd years. And Adam, you're muted.
It's hard to look at this opening and say people aren't playing aggressively. We have action in the English Channel, we have action in Burgundy, and we have action in the Black Sea, which is quite fascinating, right? You don't see lately we don't see Russia opening to fleet to Romania very often at all, at least in the North American hobby. Maybe Nicola, you have a different perspective for what one sees in the French hobby, but haven't seen too much of that, and very aggressive moves all around the board here.
Yeah. And we've got the classic Venice to Trieste, which I first learned about from the French hobby. So
yeah, but Rome to Venice also.
Yeah, Rome to Venice is that's not the same opening. Yes, you're correct. I overlooked that. All right, Adam.
Okay, wow. So the Turks convoy out to Romania, while Romania guesses that the Turks are going to do a supported attack on Seb. So the net result is the Turks are building two. The Turks support the Italians to Serbia. So I guess this was meant to be like a Kilapanto type of thing, because the Italians go to Aegean and the Albania goes to Ionian. So this looks like some kind of arranged opening. I guess if the Turks had sniffed it out, maybe they would have moved to Serbia to bounce the Italians. But I guess the AI gets exactly where they want to be position-wise. In the West, you've got the bounce in Sweden, and you've got the Germans actually, rather than going for a French center, of which none were covered, support the English into Belgium by convoy. Really interesting decisions there.
Yeah, so just so Ley he said that he has invented this opening for Italy and Austria, and he calls it the Children's Crusade. So in the 13th century there was a crusade of children. Their plan was to walk from, I think, Marseille to the Holy Land, walking through Constantinople. So you just watch this Venice army and its trajectory during the game, and it's a very sneaky opening, because you really make everybody believe that Italy has attacked Austria, and in fact everything is in place. But Austria needs to be pretty trusting. But I know Christophe Borja, and if you propose him something fun and new, usually he goes for it.
That's fantastic. I love that even after over 50 years, we still have creativity in the openings. Let's find out if that creativity pays off.
It's very cool, right? Because it puts a great position on the for the attack on the Turks with the Austrians and Ionian. The only downside is with Turkey getting two build, it does complicate things a little bit. Makes it harder. Normally, you expect Turkey to only get one build in that position.
All right, Nicola.
So in the east, so the AI continues to be very efficient. So that this Italian army coming from Venice is already in Bulgaria. And the other army also is going to Bohemia. So I think that's something that in the French hobby, usually it's that we don't really like to do AIR. So it's really AI against Russia and Turkey. And so here you can see that Italy and Austria are already moving against Russia. You need to be fast, because you're not going to kill Russia in 1910. You need to take the centers before that. So you need to take position. And in the West, you can see that EG is making progress. So England is putting his fleet in now. France is making a bad guess and is losing Paris, but potentially can take it back in the fall. So in the fall, what do we see? So I think France is making kind of a mistake because I think he could have taken back Paris, but I mean, maybe there was a guessing game. What's funny is Sweden is still neutral at the end of 1902, which we don't see that often. And Italy and Austria are really making fantastic actions. So Italy is taking Tunis, is taking Constantinople. I think Turkey got, I don't know, scammed to some extent. Austria is moving the fleet to Eastern. Fantastic set of moves, super efficient alliance play.
It's a thing of beauty. I love it. And that's, as Adam said, this isn't even like the standard Russian position either. So they're making efficient work of a not easy path through Turkey. Yeah.
So, more fleets for Italy, and I let Adam go for that.
Yeah, I mean it's all nice moves. The AI is continuing to do their thing, and the Italians are even free to move a fleet to the Western Med and an army to Piedmont at this point because they have the units to do it right now. It looks like maybe there's a little bit less aggression. Well, it's hard to say what the plan is against the Russians. The Austrians do support themselves up to Galicia here. So. Meanwhile, Turkey's in kind of a bad way. Back in the West, let's see, what is it? The English convoy from Belgium to Brest. That's kind of cool. Let's see, why did they do it that way rather than just...
Because English Channel could have been cut, I think.
Because it could have been cut by Mid-Atlantic. Yeah, it's a nice move. Okay. And this guarantees it because Paris also cut Gascony. So nice coordinated moves amongst the English and the French. So they needed a way to cut Mao and Gascony, which is done through North Atlantic and Paris. And they also needed to make sure that the support for the attack on Brest couldn't be cut. And the way to do that was by convoying it. Very nice moves.
Yeah.
They are sacrificing Liverpool, but they'll take it back later, I think.
Actually, no. The North Atlantic bounced Mid-Atlantic, so actually Liverpool can be covered from North Atlantic.
Oh yeah, sorry, I thought it
wouldn't be a terrible sacrifice.
No.
And now the French support the Italians up to the Mid-Atlantic because why not? And otherwise in the West, the English and Germans just continue to coordinate and really set up a really nice position, particularly for the English there. And then in the East, let's see, we finally have England taking Sweden and supporting the Germans up into Gulf of Bothnia to get rid of the northern Russian fleet. I guess it could have had some options for retreats, but it elects not to. And I think the reason that Russia's doing that is so they can rebuild it as an army, because they do take Romania this turn.
Yep. Good call. So we've got double fleets from England here. How do you feel about that, Nicola?
Well, I think it's fine. Maybe Germany is not going to like it that much, in particular the Edinburgh fleet. But I think you can say, okay, I'm going after Russia. If I want to get St. Petersburg, I need to go there. But yeah, I think it's good for England. I'm not sure how Germany is going to like it. So,
Adam, would you buy that? That's an anti-Russian set of builds?
I think it's the most flexible builds that England can make, right? And I don't think they need to commit to anything in the spring for sure. So, I mean, I think from that perspective, it's a great play by England to do it. It's certainly stronger than putting, the maybe more obvious army in London or something to convoy it down. Though I don't know that Germany really would love that either. So there's not a lot you could do that's going to make Germany happy. These moves probably make Germany very happy, though.
Yeah, so what we see is that AI is continuing to, the famous children crusade from Bulgaria, they are moving to Constantinople, and Constantinople is moving to Ankara. So they've almost killed Turkey by now. And then what you see also that Austria is making moves in the center of the board, taking Bohemia and Silesia. So it's the spring they are making moves for position. And the English are moving their fleets everywhere. I think they're doing great also. So what we see is, EG versus AI, and both alliances are really, really efficient. I think AI is doing almost perfect moves every single turn. So
I do sort of wonder in the long run, or in the long run, the 1907 run of a game like this, if this is really going to work out well for Italy, though, because they really have sort of left 2 units with no supply lines, just hanging out in an area that I suspect Austria may be in a position to just take them toward the end of the game, where the risk of something happening on the other side of the board is low because the game's going to end.
Yeah, I mean, as usual in this kind of alliances, what Italy is going to do in France and what Austria is going to do in Russia, I think is going to decide to decide the outcome of the game. And but for now, I mean, they stick together, and EG also sticks together. So it's another game where Francophone players are not greatly steady. So that can happen. And I mean, Italy is trying to play a bit balance of power, helping France to survive and slowing down the EG as much as they can. So I think that's also pretty good.
Yeah, it's good. It's good moves by the Italian. I think this is what they should be doing there. They don't really have the units to really make an impact or take the centers yet. So I like supporting France here.
But +3 for Austria, it's a lot.
Yeah, so in the East here, AI continue to roll. They're now pushing up against the Russians. I think that, well, it will kind of depend on what the Germans do here. The Germans might help the Russians in the fall, in which case Russia might hold out another brief period. I guess they'll lose Sev for sure, but they might be able to hold on to Moscow and Warsaw. Meanwhile, I guess the Italians finally do go into Spain. And the English and Germans are continuing to collaborate in the other part of the board. So no real changes here.
How do we feel about that move to Spain?
It seems to be in the wrong direction. I think maybe you wait till fall before you take one of the centers. But do you really want to?
I think it's important to if you do that, you need to have France agreeing to that.
I mean, it almost feels like you'd have to have that agreed.
I don't know. The English channel moved to Irish, so maybe it's a way to. It was a way to lure the Irish fleet to Mao, while English was going to Irish Sea to take Liverpool. I don't know.
And maybe there's also a thought about if, in case the English and Germans got into Gascony, Burgundy, Spain can help them in Marseille. Yeah.
But I think that the point of the game where you really need to be careful on what you're doing, because that's the time of the game, 1905, when the game is won or lost. This type of situation.
Not thrilled about the Ionian Greece bounce, the bounce in Greece. I would have rather that Ionian fleet go to the Tyrrhenian Sea and start marching in that direction faster. Really unhappy about that as a tempo move.
I agree.
We do see the children are continuing to march to Smyrna, though.
No.
Syria should be next. Let's see.
Yep.
Whoa. 'Cause, 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 'c
So now it's Italy who is doing +3, so it's a pretty balanced alliance, and pretty efficient AI. It's 1906, the end of 1905. So
Yeah, how do you set up to win this game if you're Austria or you're Italy?
you get one center more than your ally. But I think Austria has still growth without any, they're taking Moscow here, and I don't think any of their center is in danger. Where I think the Italian center in France and Spain and in Portugal, they are more fragile. So, and England has slowed down a bit because they had to go back to take Liverpool that they had lost. And now it's kind of the rush for the end of the game. So we see Germany take Sweden, England is afraid, so they are covering Belgium, and we see that I think France maybe was not totally on board with Italy taking their centers. So now they are taking the support to Portugal, and so the Italian position in Iberia is kind of, and in France is a bit crumbling down. So they are losing Marseille and Portugal, and they're having Spain in exchange, but I don't think they're going to keep it in 1907.
No, this looks like Austria's game to lose in 1907.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah, so I think they stopped now because I think Christophe has made his move. I think Ley has made a couple of mistakes. I think maybe diplomatically he was a bit not nice enough to France, and then he lost a couple of dots. And so he's tied for second with England, who also played a good game. So Hervé Boulanger is another French player who is playing from abroad. So I think currently he's working for a French company in South Korea. So he's also in the French player, but in East Asia, like Ley. So he's also very active on the French website. He's one of the main organizers of the gunboat tournament. So I think I wanted to thank him live. Yeah, thank you, Hervé, for all you're doing.
Thank you. And thank you for Nicolas for bringing that game, and Ley for the very fun Children's Crusade opening. That was really fun. And that AI was so efficient. Just textbook play there. It was fun to watch. Let's do another one. All right. And Adam, we're going to give you another break. And David, you are back. Nicolas, help set this one up. This is game number 13.
Yes. So I think France, it's not, this name, it's again, it's low. Let me check. I think the names are messed up. Because I think France should be Loïc Borja and England should be Christophe Borja, I think. If I'm not mistaken.
Let me check. Maybe they get mixed up. Well, let's watch. Let's all learn this one together and see what happens. I don't know.
Okay. Anyway, so yeah, I think this is the game where I think Christophe Borja is playing England and his son is playing France.
All right, let's watch and see if this is the same game. If not, we'll.
No, I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty sure it is.
Okay.
So
cool. All right, David, I'll have you start out in 1901.
We've got that French opening that can sometimes lead to 3 builds. We'll see if that's what happens otherwise. Another game tonight where we've seen nobody go to the Black Sea, which is unusual in any league to not see somebody go in the Black Sea. Otherwise, I'm not sure I see anything of tremendous note in the spring night. Well, I guess the Army move to Naples instead of Apulia usually means somebody is learning the game, honestly, is what that usually means. I don't know who is playing Italy here, but that's what it usually means.
Yeah, he's not a regular. So, but
convoying to Greece is also a choice. You know, I used to see that more in the old days than I see it now. But it's an interesting move. You know, yes, bypass Tunis, but not to help against the Turks, but to take something from the Austrians. Of course, in this case, the Austrians supported an end, maybe? What did Albania do? Albania did not order to Greece.
I think
that supported the convoy.
So I guess that's a way to play the AI. Again, I may have seen that in the past, but I'm not sure I've seen it recently. Pretty sure I haven't seen it recently. The English move to the Barents is something we also don't see as much as I maybe have seen in the old days. A very aggressive anti-Russian move in 1901.
Yeah, I think that's you get the two Borgias, the father and son, in England and France. So I think with Ley, who is an alliance player in Germany, so maybe they tried to just say, okay, why don't we do some kind of Western triple? And
well, that's what that opening looks like a little bit. The only thing that wouldn't be consistent with that is the fleet not going to Spain. But I guess anything's possible here.
Yeah. That's France may not be fully on board and is trying to keep their options open. That's what it feels like to me. But
yeah,
we'll know this turn. Nicolas.
Okay, so I picked this game because this is the game where the son stabs the father in 1902. So if I had to give a name, it would be like Tuquoque Mifili, when Caesar got killed by his adopted son. So here we see that Germany is moving to north unsuccessfully, but moving to Heligoland to have play on north, and France moves their fleet north. So Christophe is in trouble, and the fleet in Barents is not going to help. On the other side of the board, so Austria is forcing Galicia, but Steve Personini in Russia is moving aggressively by moving to the Black Sea and putting an army in Romania. It's not totally clear yet what this means, because it's just even if you want to attack Austria, you need to get this fleet out of Romania, and with Austria in Galicia, it might be the case that it was the right thing to do, and that Turkey is not against this. So Turkey is doing well because now the two fleets are out, and so basically any kind of Lepanto business is over. So that's one of the reasons we see sometimes in the French hobby this no move to the Black Sea. It's just people are really, really afraid of the AI type Lepanto, and Turkey wants their fleet out, because otherwise they are going to be in trouble. And remember, the games don't last very, very long, so you can't do a comeback like Michaelis did in the previous game. And even in that game in 1910, it was a bit too little, too late. If the game was time unlimited, 5 center Turkey in 1910, you're pretty happy about it. But so here it's saying, okay, I don't want to be in a position where my game is over because of a Lepanto. I'm going to trust Russia. And, it does well to trust Russia. Russia is taking Serbia, moving Black Sea back to Romania, and making lots of progress there. So that's pretty good. Other than that, what we can see is that France is taking the Channel, and Germany has not taken the North Sea yet, but it should happen soon. So I don't even know what happened there. Oh yeah, no, there was just support and a convoy the army back for defense. So Christophe is trying to defend as much as he can, but this fleet in Barents is really not great.
No, that's the downside of that early attack. I was just going to say one thing about the Balkans. That the Russo-Turkish moves there shouldn't have worked. I mean, Austria being in Galicia, going back to Vienna with some doesn't do you any good at all. I mean, you take Romania with 3, for example, would have been almost anything would have been better than what happened here. Supporting Serbian place would have been better than what happened here. So that was
I don't
fortunate. That was fortunate for the RT.
Yeah, both Gilles and Michael, I think, are not regular players, and maybe some inexperience shows with this.
Well, we all have to learn sometime.
Yeah.
Some of us more often than others.
Does take Serbia back because the Russians have again moved to the Black Sea.
Mhm.
So that allows the Austrians to take Serbia. Well, there was no way to defend. Anyway, RT is certainly going to slow to a crawl here, although obviously the Italians losing Greece, at least in the short term. In the West, you know, that fleet in Barents finally comes back to actually start doing something productive. At the same time, England is losing the North Sea, which ain't productive for the English.
No.
Fall turn, the dad says to the son, "I'm just going to mid-Atlantic then, and we'll see how this goes. We'll see how this goes. I'm going to let the Germans do whatever they want," which they do. So the Germans take London here, right?
Yep.
With an army.
Yes, convoyed by the French, right? And then, convoyed by the North. Well, anyway, with support.
With support
Yeah.
of the French. Yep.
Yeah, and the French gets Wales, and they get Belgium in exchange. So I think a very, very good alliance play once more. And Ley is very, he's known to be an alliance player, and he likes to do this kind of deals where the alliance makes progress, and you just exchange dots to balance things out. So
Also making progress in Vienna is Ley Sarlanen.
Yep.
Austria's position obviously has gone to pot.
Yeah.
So
And Russia is,
intervened. I'm sorry, Nikolai, go ahead.
Russia is also taking Norway. So it's,
I was going to say, when the Germans intervene in the East like this, the question often is, who does that really help? Sometimes it's the Germans. Sometimes it's not the Germans. They're sort of destabilizing powers in the East, but they're not really helping themselves that much because they can't hold it. We'll see what happens here.
So yeah, it's my turn. So Russia continues to make this every turn goes to the Black Sea in the spring and puts an army in Rome and then usually gets back. We'll see what happens. Then goes to Baltic, goes to Bohemia. So they're making a move. I mean, they're already at 8 centers, and they're really trying to. Austria is dead, and they're trying to make progress there. They're helping Italy retake Vienna, so from German hands. The thing is, they're making an enemy from Germany right now, and the question is, will they be able to keep going when England is basically dead? So FG will have a lot of freedom to do whatever they want with their units now that England is dead. And smart convoy from London to Edinburgh by Ley, which gives him a very strong position there, and also good move, I think, to moving to Denmark with the fleet. I don't think the fleets are needed against England anymore, so he's positioning himself to defend against Russia and to maybe counterattack in the future. In the fall, so there are some kind of funny moves because so Russia takes Budapest but convoys the Turkish army to Sebastopol. So that's I guess Turkey was a bit fed up with Russia getting everything, but I'm not sure that would have been my choice of dot. I think I would have preferred to move Serbia to Budapest and tell Turkey take Serbia instead. Other than that, I think we say goodbye to Christophe Borja, with the final knife in the back by his son by taking Liverpool. And so FG has been once again, very efficient. England is dead, and you can see that they are moving their units in unison. So the German fleet goes to Skagerrak, followed by the French fleet to the north. So lots of trust there, but Russia is ahead, so they need to do something, and they need to work together to make sure that they have a chance to top that board.
I liked Russia's position a lot in this game until that convoy to Sevastopol, which literally makes no sense at all. I mean, the theory behind it, I believe, is that you're going to put the army into Ukraine to help contain the Germans, but it's no.
Yeah. So Steve is a very chaotic player, very creative, but very chaotic. And you were right. The Turkish army is moving to Ukraine, but this is maybe a bit
would have been way better for what you said. Would have been way better. Have the Turks in Serbia, because now you've got that army in Bulgaria that can't do anything. For example.
I don't know. Is it my turn or is it David's turn?
I don't. It may be my turn, but I just wanted to say that the fleet has gone back to Romania.
Yeah.
The Russian. It could just be the Russian fleets or the Russian ships are just not very seaworthy. They keep needing to go back into Odessa or back into Constanta or some other port on the Black Sea, just for refitting. Maybe that's what's going on. All right, let's look at the West instead. So the Germans. Trying to flank the Russian in Munich so they can take that back. French going to Norwegian matters because he's up there to help against the Russians, I think. Well, either that or taking Edinburgh. Well, they don't need to. It was convoyed out. So if they wanted to take Edinburgh, they can just take Edinburgh. I like France's chances in this game. I loved Russia's chances until that convoy. Yeah, take Sevastopol with the fleet, and then putting the army in Romania. I don't know about all that. If I'm the Russians, but at any rate, the Russians are losing Norway, the Russians are losing Sweden, the Russians are losing Munich, the Russians are losing Budapest. So I guess this whole issue about their fleet is the least of their problems.
Yeah, I think they were a bit too greedy, and I think France and Germany cooperated really, really well. They did what they had to do. They saw that they had a common enemy. This is the early leader syndrome that sometimes Russia can suffer from. I think we saw it a little bit in the other game with Nicolas also starting super fast with Russia and being fought back by the rest of the board. And here, Germany and France did exactly what they needed. And they realized, if we don't do something about it, and if we fight, Russia is going to top that board. So, and Steve lost control of the position.
Go ahead, Nicola. I'm sorry.
I think Steve lost control of the position, and now, he has lost this game. FG has won this game. Everybody else is crying.
That's totally right. Well, and they even ended the game.
And I think that they ended the game. I think France has a better position, and if he wanted, he could top that board. But I think Loic is a bit less experienced than Lay, so maybe he was a bit afraid to stab Lay. And also I think that Lay is pretty convincing that if you attack him, he's going to take revenge and remember this for generations and generations. So he's a very convincing diplomat when he's saying that you should not stab him, and usually you prefer not to stab him, and so that was I remember in VDC some people, I think on one board both Christophe and Loic were playing on the same board. And people just tried to kill them both because they said, father and son, they can only work together. Yeah, not always.
Well,
not always.
Nicola, thank you so much for bringing these games and helping provide the storylines and the coverage and insight into the players. I love seeing the French hobby because it's got its own unique meta, and it has been very different for me as a North American player primarily to watch that, and it did not disappoint once again. So thank you for bringing some good games.
There is always something to learn from different styles, different scoring systems, different structures, different players, and maybe you cannot do exactly the same in a North American game, but you can pick one ID here, one ID there, and have fun with it.
Yeah, and I think too, it just speaks to the fact that this game that we love can be played in multiple ways, and it's still a lot of fun. So really appreciate that, and thanks for joining us. We'll say goodnight to you, and we'll welcome back to the stream, Adam.
I think the theme is Vive les différences.
Yes, exactly. So, and I don't speak French, but I know that one. So, all right. Well, it is now time for us to get to the final game of the evening. This is going to be our Virtual Diplomacy League final game of the night. So go ahead and bring that up. While I'm doing that, David, what's something you took away from the games that we just saw?
The theme of the games, frankly, both those games as well as our video games up to now for tonight, is that a strong alliance strategy where you work together really well can really be effective. It doesn't really matter what the scoring system is and when the game's going to end. That is not the only way to play. Don't get me wrong. There are some, sit around and make short-term deal strategy type things that can also work. But a strong alliance that you pick and you really work the moves out well and turn it into a well-oiled machine can really put both parties in good position for later in the game.
All right. Well, here is our final game, and this is game 102 for Marcia P. Johnson. Again, we are naming all of the boards tonight. The VDL team named all of their boards after LGBTQ activists in honor of Pride. And tonight's board, pulling up my notes here because this is important. The final one is Marcia P. Johnson. She is an American gay liberation activist and self-identified drag queen. Known as an outspoken advocate for gay rights, Johnson was one of the prominent figures in the Stonewall Uprising of June of 1969. She was an AIDS activist with ACT UP as well. So again, thank you to those who went before us to help us where we are, and let's continue to fight that fight. And on to the game. In Austria, we have what appears to be a first-time player for this season, Matthew Price-Williams. England, we have Matthew Tonchi from Portland, Oregon. France is Mark, looks like another first-time player. Germany is Austin, Texas's Farron Jane. Italy, Tommy Anderson. Russia, Brandon Dix. And Turkey, Jason Mastbaum. So another really fun lineup for tonight. What do you say we get to that game?
Yep.
All right. VDL game 102. Adam, I'm going to have you start us out in spring of 1901.
Okay, so starting at the west, we have an aggressive opening by England going down to Wales in the English Channel, and a rather strange opening by the French, with Brest going to Gascony, Marseille holding, and Paris to Picardy. If this is maybe a first game by Mark, it doesn't offer a lot of options in the fall, so it wouldn't be advisable in general to do that. But there we are. The Germans move up to Roer in Denmark. The east looks fairly standard, except we see Venice to Piedmont. Otherwise, bounces in the Black Sea and Galicia. So I think the the strange opening moves by France may end up being a deciding feature of this game, since often that will dictate where a lot of the rest of the board goes. And indeed, in the fall, we see England make the interesting decision, rather than going after a French dot for Brest, or even Belgium decides to go into the mid-Atlantic and play the positioning game here. Germany, the consequence of that is Germany is going to get 3 builds because Picardy held for some reason. The Italians convoy into Tunis and leave Marseille alone, go up to Tyrolia, and the Black Sea remains empty as Turkey moves to get that fleet out.
Yeah, that's really great that the German player was able to get 3 centers. I think this might be Farron Jane's first diplomacy game, and so I'm glad that Farron is having such good success. Wait, no, never mind.
Winter of 1901, we've got the army in Paris, fleet in London, 2 armies from Russia, fleet in Smyrna, fleet Naples, army Trieste, and with those 3 builds, 2 armies and a fleet. What stands out to you with this, David?
The fact that it's 2 armies is actually a little bit of a standout to me, because I think there would have been a pretty good argument for another fleet there to give yourself some more flexibility for Farron. I'm not saying it's going to turn out poorly for Farron. It probably won't, given the situation, but it's almost as if the 4 armies is a little bit of overkill, unless there's already going to be a move somewhere to the east. We'll see.
You're talking about the Russian army in St. Petersburg rather than the fleet, David?
I was talking about the Germans building 2 armies. I would have thought about maybe building 2 fleets.
She built a fleet in Berlin, actually.
I know, but they built 3. I was arguing for 2 fleets.
2 fleets.
Oh, you would have liked to see 2
kill also.
Arguing for 2 fleets under the theory that would then give you 3 fleets, 3 armies, would give you a lot of flexibility.
I see. Okay, I misunderstood what you were saying. I think, yeah, I mean, I would have expected the fleet to go into Kiel and maybe 2 armies with the fleet in Kiel, just to build the flexibility there with what you can do with the fleet. I think, the 2 fleets is a really interesting proposition here.
I'm not saying I'm a big fan of that always, but when you got the English that have vacated the North Sea already, I don't know. To me, it just seemed like it might give you some play on the English, try to work with the French maybe. Doesn't matter, because now you get into Burgundy. Because Picardy holds.
Yeah, so it makes me wonder a little bit, if you're going to go Berlin to Kiel, why not put the fleet in Kiel in the first place and go Holland to Ruhr and all that kind of thing. But, that's okay.
There's always Tyrolia to Munich as a possibility.
There's always that thing you can do.
There's also Black Sea and Armenia as a possibility. We got some stuff going on here, because you do that at the same time you're losing Bulgaria to the Austrians and you're being Lepantoed by the Italians. So this is awesome. Taking Bulgaria back with Russian help. That just sometimes you've made the wrong move and then you got to fix it, which is what Jason has done here.
Yeah, and credit to Jason and credit to, I guess, probably Brandon in this case for making the move and agreeing to trust for Jason at this time.
And that was an interesting guess there. Do you think the Italians are going to convoy directly into Smyrna, or do you think they're going to go to Syria? It's a guess. Guessed correctly if you're the Turks.
David, what do we have going on in the West?
We have Marseille falling to the Germans. We have Kiel funnily being ordered to Munich.
I like that.
Yeah, that's fun. We have nobody taking Sweden, right? Because England just held. So there's not active, and the Russians held. That's all of that is interesting. I guess not an active EG at all, really. It's just England attacking France and Germany attacking France.
Well, the Denmark to Sweden move is theoretically important, right? Because the purpose of that is to cut the support for St. Pete to Norway.
Or take Sweden if he goes from Sweden to Norway.
That's right.
But it's interesting that all the rest of those units held, is my point. That's an interesting.
Yeah, why didn't Norway just support Denmark to Sweden just for the hell of it, right?
Because they must not be really working together, was my argument.
Yeah.
There's clearly not a strong alliance there. They're just both attacking France, but not really together otherwise, it looks to me like.
Mm-hmm. 2 fleets for England. What do you think about that? Probably the right thing if you're attacking France from this position. I mean,
I think it's the right thing in almost every situation in early in the game.
I guess you don't even have anything in the North Sea, so you pretty much
got to do it. You've already got an army you're not using,
yeah.
So got to build the fleets.
Adam, spring of 03.
Sure. We now have got another AstroTurk. That has certainly been a theme today. This is, what is this, the third or fourth we've seen in half a dozen games. That's we go probably multiple sessions without seeing a single one. And it's effective too, right? They take Romania, that army, the Turks are out of Armenia, and the Italians are making no progress. Actually, the Austrians walk into an undefended Venice right here. So this is trouble, and really what the Italians needed to do is convoy that army from Tunis back into Italy, rather than getting it stuck there. So they've got some problems. Meanwhile, in the west, the Germans are making some progress into France. The Italians are making some progress into Ruhr, if that's progress, I guess. And England is doing its thing.
Gosh. And still nothing going on in Scandinavia.
Yeah.
It's interesting set of moves. McCarlos makes a good point in the comments why the English didn't convoy an army to Brest instead of taking with the fleet earlier. It's a good point.
Yep. One other really interesting thing I think to note in the spring is that Farron makes the, I think, probably wise decision to not worry so much about that Italian army. I think, she could spend a lot of time chasing it around. In the long run, it's not going to really be doing that much to her. So I think she's making the right choice. Obviously, don't let it pick up a second dot, but beyond that, you could take it back eventually. Not a big deal.
Yeah, and it's not picking up a second dot. It's just going to Marseille. So I'm sorry, back to Munich. That's what I meant to say.
Yeah. Otherwise, I think in the West, the Germans are going to take Spain undefended. The English retake Brest. This is all. I mean, again, this is you have to ask yourself, why are they not convoying to Brest? I guess in this case, right? I guess because that can be stopped by Paris cutting Gascony. So I guess it's the right move if you want to force it. The Italians do finally convoy out of Tunis. They convoy to Albania. I don't know. How do you feel about Albania instead of Apulia?
I don't like it very much. What are you going to do there?
Yeah, I think you want to be in Apulia here.
I think that's right. I also want to be in Farron Jane's shoes is where I want to be in this game.
In this game, for sure. Here comes Army Berlin. Yep.
All right, so because Farron hadn't made enough progress, let's just let Farron into Paris.
Yeah.
We all know that Farron Jane has an interesting relationship with the city of Paris on the diplomacy map, so we'll see how it works out in this game. The English convoying to Picardy. I mean, obviously France is gone, so now or essentially gone. So the question is, what happens now, as between the English and the Germans? Interesting that Spain just goes back to Marseille there instead of to the Gascony, don't you think? I guess maybe that was a deal that was made there.
It's bizarre.
Well, maybe this was an outguess.
It was a guess, yeah. Well, now you've got a guess over.
Assume that the French were going to Gascony, so you go slip in behind them. That's like kind of cool.
Yeah, but you got to get. I guess you got to guess in Spain and Marseille, but that's probably easier to retake later than dealing with Paris.
Yeah. I might have been tempted just to go to Portugal there if I was the Germans and just try to guess in the fall. But
I guess the English are going to go to Portugal now.
One would think.
Indeed.
Interesting stuff. All right, and then the Germans go ahead and go to Baltic Sea. So I guess they've decided that they're going to stick. That the Farron's going to stick with the English here, which makes it's not irrational.
I just love the Italian army moving from Munich into Warsaw.
If Chaos is your goal. Tommy Anderson is the agent of choice.
Yeah, tornadoes have been spotted in the VDL this evening. That is what is happening here.
Well, the visit to Warsaw is short-lived as they're kicked out, though, of course, we've now got Austria all over the place. The Astro Turk is rolling. Perhaps the Turks are going to be working with the Italians, though, and everybody's going west to hold up the English units, which, again, is just great news for Farron if that's what's happening right now, because that will open up possibilities for her come another year or so.
And you know, I was going to say they've been leaving the Russian centers open, but I guess they've decided Russia's done all that Russia can do for them.
Yeah, there's probably not a lot of benefit to not taking those dots yourselves. Of course, now you've got Farron is going up 1, but you've got the English going up 2, and actually not in a terrible position down in France and down in Italy. This will be interesting to see how that progresses.
Tombstone / tornado / two-timer / two-way Anderson, it has taken Venice back, possibly with Austrian acquiescence, since they didn't do anything about it.
Seems, yeah, everybody wanted Tunis, perhaps, or everybody just agreed to bounce there.
And Trieste just going to Vienna. I mean, if you're worried at all about losing Venice, you just ordered a Venice there.
Yeah, that hurts for Austria for sure.
Well, they're getting rid of a fleet maybe that they didn't think they needed. I don't know.
Well, now you can set up to get mass bombed.
Not Austrian acquiescence. All right, fine.
Yeah,
I don't know. You're just getting mass bombed here. You
kind of need the Italian armies in the middle of the board. You can't really do anything. Jason can't do anything fun. No, and here come the English.
Yeah.
Ba-ba-bum. Wow. Why are you going to Tuscany? Is that just worried that the Austrians are going to go there?
It's just where tornadoes go in spring 1906.
There is good wine there, so it could be for that.
Perhaps. We're playing around a lot because it's late at night, but obviously the English have pierced any kind of position that the AT was hoping to set up here.
Yeah, this could be. I mean, I don't know how far they can push, but I think they certainly have the upper hand. The question, I think, becomes, does the EG continue to roll, or are there chinks in the armor as one of them decides that they want to make sure they're on the board top and not the other? It does look like England has more room for growth than Germany does right now.
It really does. It really does. Yeah.
And I'm not sure what Farron can really do to change that dynamic, because there's Austrian units she's up against the wall with Austrian units. In fact, this board could basically agree to lock pretty quickly, perhaps, because really Farron just has nowhere to go. Two Turkish armies. Well, Jason Mastbaum may not feel like he needs those Austrian units anymore, and could be looking to make a run himself to top this.
Perhaps, but goodness, England's position though.
Well, England's got one more center for sure one likely in Rome, but beyond that, I'm not sure. So can Jason get to 11? Maybe.
He's certainly going to try, it looks like.
Yeah, good for him. So they are keeping Tommy alive to fight Jason, which makes sense. The English are covering Spain just in case, which makes sense. otherwise, really just pushing through and ostensibly still working with the Germans. It's interesting that they clearly don't want to move into the North Sea. The bounce into Norwegian and Denmark is arranged, and the English Channel could have supported Norwegian down, or they could have went down the other way, but they chose not to. The support into Mao was completely unnecessary. So it's good. England's doing a nice job of keeping units where they're needed in case to make sure Farron doesn't do anything funny, but keeping the alliance going, which I think is in their interests.
I agree.
That's it. Oh, 10-10. Well, Farron really did a nice job diplomatically of getting a shared board top. This felt to me like a fairly dominant English position, and so good job to Farron for getting the tie, and good job to England for really a commanding game.
Was this the right choice for Jason?
I think so. I mean, his position's not something that was going to be able to outdo the others. I understand he's only one center behind, but I just don't think so.
It really just depends on, what Jason wants. I mean, there's a lot of German armies up there, and I think that his position with his armies, especially if the Austrians are going to, with what little units they have left, work with the Germans, it's going to make his life difficult, and he can get pushed back. So I can definitely understand his decision to call a game here. The only ones really who might have incentive would be Farron or Matthew, if one of them really wants to get a solo board top, and clearly they were working well together and decided that this was a good outcome for both of them. And it's really hard to find fault in that.
Yeah, I agree with that. And McCarless is right. England's the only one that had a chance, and I didn't think the English chances were great, honestly. And that would have just possibly made Jason be able to top the board.
Well, that was a really, really fun group of games tonight. Theme at the top of the show was Stranger Things, and we definitely saw that happen tonight. We had a lot of stuff that we have not seen or covered in League Night in the past, and got to see different metas from around the globe. We saw shakeups in the standings. And speaking of, let's see where we end tonight. So after all of tonight's games, our current league, or our league leader, is now Tim Crosby. So we've got a shakeup. Nicolas Taillet moves into second. Christian Brown drops to third. Jason Bennett jumps over John Anderson into fourth. So a lot of shakeups tonight, and we've got a lot more play left. So if we take a quick look here at number of boards played, Tim Crosby at 311. That's a really good score compared, a nice gap compared to everyone else. But Nicolas Taillet, for example, still has another score. 4 scores as your max in VDL. Christian Brown is maxed out. Jason's maxed out. John Anderson, Wes Ketchum knocking on the door. Jason Massbaum's maxed. But John Anderson and Wes Ketchum knocking on the door all have games that could be played, still scores to add. So a lot of shakeups, I think, are going to continue for the next couple of months as people kind of stabilize and finish out their top 4 scores. I'm going to start with you, Adam. What's your takeaway from what you've seen tonight?
Well, I guess I'll start by saying it's still really early in the season, right? We've got months to go, and there's folks who maybe haven't even played in VDL yet and can still just dive in and get some great scores. So, I mean, I think that's the one most important thing, right? You've got to play to have a shot, and you get 4 games. And so, there's folks who have only played 2 games who could jump into the standings, or there's people who haven't played yet and can have a couple of good results and really be right in the mix. So that to me is going to be the most interesting part of watching it, seeing the folks who maybe we haven't seen too much of, and see maybe some new faces in the standings. That all being said, I mean, I think Timothy's game was very impressive today. I was really enjoyed what he did. I thought it was a solid game from start to finish. Definitely deserving for the position that he's in right now. Nicolas Tallier, clearly outstanding player, creeping right at the doorstep. So it's going to be fun to watch the 2 of them in particular as this goes on. But I think we're going to see some other faces in the 1 and 2 spot as time goes on as well. We're going to see a lot of juggling.
Yeah, and I mean, just to kind of echo that point, the past 2 seasons, Summer Classic is usually played. We usually pick up a couple of new players that start playing and get hot at the end of the season and end up making a push in the standings towards the back half of the season. I think Farron Jane's the first one that we saw that with, and we saw it again last year as well. So yeah, absolutely. It's the season's still young. There's a lot of room, and it's going to be an exciting time to watch for all of us and for the players. David, what was your takeaway from tonight?
One thing about the actual play tonight, there were a lot of good examples of people making a decision, getting new information, and then using that to make a different decision. That is actually part of one's development as a diplomacy player, is figuring out how best to do that. I am myself a player who likes to have a plan, likes to have a plan of action. I'm not a very passive guy, honestly. And so I like to make a plan, attack. But then if things don't go the right way, or some other move gets made, you got to be willing to change that horse in midstream based on good information. We saw some good examples of that. The game where Nicolas' Russia was really big, and the players changed their play to account for the fact that he was, basically without a peer on the board at the time. That's just an example. There were other examples of that. But the other thing I want to say is a little bit of a piggyback to what Adam just said, and I'll bring up Nicolas Tallier again. I believe that he did not start playing in the VDL until the second half of the season last year, then made it to the top board and obviously did well. So it is not too late, not just for the Roni Mordvinovs of the world who only have 2 scores, or the John Andersons of the world who only have 2 scores. There are people out there, as Adam's already said, who have 0 scores, and they could still be in serious contention for the VDL come December.
Absolutely. And just want to thank all of our organizers again. Shout out to Zachary Moore for putting on the Virtual Diplomacy League, to Lay and to Steve and Nicola for their help with the French League. Always fun to see. I know Sabi and Farron helped, and I think Chris Wardy, who just joined us in stream. Hey, Chris, all helped with some of the naming for the boards tonight. I think this is a powerful message, and I think that it's important for all of us to remember. And we've got a privilege to play this game and remember to be as not just accepting passively, but we need to, as a community, go out of our way to welcome everyone that we are playing with. And that's in every walk of life. And that could be based off of age. It could be your gender, your sexual orientation, your politics. Like, there's so many different ways and experience in playing games, people that you prefer to play with versus people that are new, finding ways to involve and include more people is critical to the success of this hobby, and I think in life in general. So just to close things out tonight, I just want to challenge everyone to take the message of Pride as in being inclusive, but not just to passively include, but actively include those that you interact with, and to remember that pride is a protest and it's something that we have to fight for, and this is not going to happen on its own. So thank you all for watching tonight. I very much appreciate everyone, especially those of you in chat. Chat was really active tonight. Always makes for a really fun show for all of us. And I hope that we will all see you on a diplomacy board soon. Have a great night.